Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was in Hunter x Hunter, in which Konoha's beloved Jinchuriki finds herself in an odd new world with only Kurama by her side. He insists Biju bombs are the only way to fix this issue. Welcome aboard! Chapter 25, Hyena 3. The trash was finally, almost cleared out. Within a day it would be entirely gone, which meant Miwa had to address the catastrophe that was the ground underneath. The ground from under the trash had become nearly inhabitable. Emphasis on the nearly because nasty bacteria and weird moldy mutations grew in that dirt fine and dandy. But such couldn't be allowed to stay that way because it was gross. Super gross. Some mushrooms looked nice, especially the ones that glowed at night, but the nasty smelling mold had to go. With what Miwa had in mind, the soil had to be fixed up after all the damage done from being a landfill for who knew how long. There were a few Injutsu seals that could be used to purify a land of lethal toxins, but that was mostly to get rid of poison or Biju chakra. She wasn't sure if it would work on the broad scope of nastiness. She would have liked to talk to Krallo about it, but the man had disappeared since making the deal with her. So, Miwa decided to talk about it with Kikyo during their next phone call. Miwa tended to call Killua's mom after dinner, so it was pretty late into the night. Even so, Kikyo always answered her with a warm and sweet, "Good evening, darling." Miwa was starting to really like Kikyo. Miwa told her about her day and how she was worried about the soil. "It seems like it's time to test the soil then. Why don't you collect some samples and stop by tomorrow for lunch?" suggested Kikyo. "Okay," happily agreed Miwa. Kikyo had prepared a quaint tea party. After all the gore and trash Miwa had to witness each day at Meteor City, the beautifully adorned outdoor tea party felt like a cool misty breeze in a hot dessert. Miwa beamed brightly at the woman, and the Zoldyck matriarch smiled upon her arrival. "Come, sit," insisted Kikyo. "Have you been to a tea party before?" Miwa shyly shook her head. The tea party had been set up outside, in the gardens. The table had a pristine, crisp white cloth and was adorned with sparkly finger foods that looked straight out of a magazine. "Oh! This will be your first one," exclaimed Kikyo excitedly. "Marvelous! Try a bit of everything, darling, and tell me what you like best." "Oh, I meant to ask you earlier, how poison resistant are you?" "Pretty strong," Miwa answered. "Kurama could neutralize nearly any poison. As long as it's poison or venom, I can purge it within minutes." Kikyo gasped. "My word! Can I see?" "Sure," said Miwa. She didn't see any issue with it. Kikyo was already being so kind and helpful to Miwa, and the smell of the food was terribly enticing. Kikyo was delighted by her response. "Goto, prepare the other dishes." A butler that had stood off to the side bowed. "As you wish." Miwa took a seat at the table and Kikyo poured her some amber-colored tea in a pretty porcelain cup. "Drink, darling." Miwa sipped the tea. "It's fruity. I thought you might like that best," said Kikyo proudly. "It's really good," assured Miwa. "Thank you for thinking of me." Kikyo giggled, raising a hand to touch her bandaged face. When her fingers grazed along the bandages, she let out a shudder. Her demeanor softened, as if caught up in a memory. "Ah, did I tell you that my dear Killua did this to me? I was so proud of him, so very proud." Miwa wasn't sure how to respond to that. "He did this out of love. He showed me his murderous rage. It was wonderful." "So proud of him," dawdled Kikyo, her voice trailing off. Miwa didn't entirely understand, but she thought it was nice that a mother could be proud of her son. She was proud of Killua, too. She puffed her chest. "He's pretty neat." "Did you know that he's an emitter?" Kikyo gasped in delight. "Oh. He's learning Nen? When? Tell me everything." With a big smile on her face, Miwa regaled Kikyo with what happened at Heaven's Arena. Kikyo was ever so delighted to learn about Killua's time spent in the arena learning Nen, and when Miwa told her about how they cut a head in half together, Kikyo squealed with glee. She clapped politely at the end of the tale. "Wonderful! Absolutely wonderful! Ah, I wish I could have been there to capture the moment. I've got so many videos of my children." Kikyo tapped at the visor thing around her eyes. "All of it here. I never miss a single precious moment." From their first steps to their first kill, Miwa's smile brightened. Wow. You're a great mom. Kikyo cupped at her face, squirming in place. Ah. Ah. You think so? You think so, do you? Ah. What a lovely daughter-in-law you'll be. I know, you can call me mother. Go on. Mother, repeated Miwa obediently, a little shy to be using such a title. She wasn't sure how Killua would take it. Kikyo clapped again. Yes. Perfect. Yes. I've always wanted a daughter. My sons are wonderful, and I have two that will dress like daughters, but they still want to be my sons, you know? I can't call them daughters if they're my sons. But oh, they'd make for such pretty daughters. Have you met Kaluto? When Goto comes back, I'll tell him to fetch Kaluto. I hope the two of you will get along. Miwa inclined her head. It wasn't long after that did Goto bring out a tray of poisoned foods that looked equally delicious. Miwa tried a few of them, marveling at how she couldn't taste anything wrong with them. Oh. Interesting. But apparently, they had some pretty strong stuff in them. A couple of the cute little sandwiches made Miwa throw up blood in her mouth. She swallowed it back down, and one of the mini cakes made her head spin. It had been a while since Miwa was poisoned. She only remembered one time since waking up, and she had to admit it was an intriguing experience. She had absolute faith in Kurama's chakra, coupled with her own self-healing capabilities. She didn't feel endangered by the toxins, but it was a bit of a trip. Each time Miwa conquered a poisoned meal, Kikyo squealed in delight and cheered her on, which emboldened Miwa into trying more and more. Far too soon the treats had been eaten up, the tea gone, and Miwa's belly was satisfyingly full. She had grown accustomed to only eating one meal a day, dinner, because it upset her stomach to smell Meteor City. And that dinner, while nice, was nowhere near as extravagant as the tea party Kikyo had prepared for her. Miwa licked her lips. This was great. Thank you. No, thank you, gushed Kikyo. Come along inside. I'll show you my laboratory and we'll take a look at those soil samples. Goto, send Kaluto over to us when you find him, okay? Goto bowed again. As you wish. Miwa smiled, patting her stomach. She didn't want to get up, but knew she had to. Okay. Kikyo guided Miwa to a laboratory further inside the house. It was filled with odd machines that beeped and lit up. There were dozens of screens that displayed graphs, equations, and paragraphs of texts in languages Miwa didn't recognize. Kikyo accepted the soil samples Miwa had gathered and dumped them into some odd machines. She fussed around with the controls for a while. She told Miwa the computer would begin analyzing the soils, then clicked her tongue. Oh, dear. I forgot one of the machines in the torture chambers, she sighed. Did she say torture chamber? I think so. I'll be right back, Kikyo assured Miwa. Wait right here. Miwa nodded as Kikyo left. The blonde Jinchuriki looked around the laboratory, curious to what everything did. Hello. Miwa turned to the entrance of the laboratory. I'm Kaluto, introduced the child that stood at the doorway. Kaluto was a very pretty boy dressed as a girl. Like Killua, Kaluto had a charming face, although Kaluto's leaned more feminine. Killua's younger brother eyed Miwa disdainfully behind a paper fan. Miwa peered at him. You're very pretty. Thank you, he said icily. Where'd you get the dress? Miwa asked, wondering if she could steal her own versions of it. It looked shiny, sleek, and adorable. Would I look cute in something like that? Still using your definition of fluffy and warm? It's custom made, he answered. It's a Furisode kimono. Furisode kimono, Miwa repeated, then brightened. What an elegant name. I guess that suits you 'cause you're very elegant. I would have thought you were a princess. His eyes narrowed. Coldly, he asked her, you see me as a girl? Miwa may not have been the most socially intuitive person, but she could pick up that she had offended him somehow. Not wanting to upset Killua's brother, she thought back over her words and considered what she had said. She had admittedly thought he wanted to be seen as a girl because of how he was dressed, but Miwa had to acknowledge her worldview had drastically changed since realizing cute things weren't exclusively fluffy animals. What do you want me to see you as? Miwa hesitantly asked. He frowned. You don't have your own opinion? Miwa shrugged, deciding to be honest. When I first saw you, I thought you wanted to be a girl. You smelled like a boy, but you dressed so pretty, you know? But your mom called you her son. I used to think that boys who dress like girls wanted to be girls, but I also used to think that only animals could be cute. I've learned a lot. Like this. Miwa held up her Totoro phone. See, it's cute even though it's not an animal, she proudly declared. I was wrong before. So maybe I was wrong again? Boys can dress up in cute things too and not want to be girls, but instead just like cute things. Right? Kaluto stared at her for several seconds, his expression unreadable. Then he gave a slow, small nod. Miwa beamed. Then you're a comrade in cute. Let's be friends, okay? Kaluto didn't know how to react when Miwa suddenly grabbed his hands and shook them. Wowza, Miwa thought. First, I made friends with Krallo and now I'm friends with Kaluto. I guess making friends isn't that scary. She had been worried she'd never make friends after Gon and Killua, but it looked like her worries were for nothing. Kaluto turned pink. Why you? Hey! Do you want to go steal stuff with me? Miwa asked. St steal? Yeah, it's super fun. Kaluto's cheeks continued to grow a brighter shade of red. His hands trembled as Miwa held tightly onto them. Your hands. It was then that Kikyo returned. I didn't forget it in the chambers, I forgot it was actually destroyed when Killua esca, oh my. Already friends? Yeah, confirmed Miwa, letting go of Kaluto's hands to properly face Kikyo. I was going to ask Kaluto to do something fun with me. Oh, Kikyo cooed. Like shopping? Shopping is fun? Terribly so. Kaluto has excellent taste in clothes and really, darling, you shouldn't be in Killua's raggedy old things, Kikyo said. Then she paused. Well, wear those while you're still tearing Meteor City apart, but once you're done purging that place from existence, you'll need something nice to wear around. Nice, repeated Miwa. Kaluto shakily held his hands close to his chest, his flushed cheeks slowly returning to their normal color. I will assist you, SS sister-in-law, Kikyo squealed again. Marvelous. Stupendous. Oh, what lovely children I have. Killua has such a nice family, Miwa thought happily. Nice families have torture chambers, huh? Killua has such a nice family, Miwa repeated, ignoring Kurama's sass. Unsurprisingly, the soil under Meteor City was heavily polluted. It had high concentrations of saline, acidity, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Anything that could grow there would be dangerous to consume, if not outright lethal. Treating such a wide area of heavily damaged soil would bankrupt some countries. Luckily for Meteor City, Miwa had some tricks up her sleeves. A perfectly normal human would treat contaminated soil by adding rich organic matter, peat moss, compost, and some aged manure. They would carefully nurture the soil over the next few years and adjust the pH levels as need be. Miwa had the bright idea to ask Kikyo to test her conjured Doton. Miwa didn't have an affinity for Doton. It wasn't something she could foresee ever using in combat. This soil is fine. It's perfectly normal. It wouldn't treat the pollution, said Kikyo as she examined the results. And if I mixed it in with that other stuff? I wouldn't even bother, said Kaiki with a shake of her head. Dump enough of this, what did you call it? Doton onto the ground and use that as a baseline. How deep? Miwa asked. 5 meters minimum if you're wanting to grow anything on top, said Kikyo. If you were able to pour on some concrete between the polluted soil and the Doton, that'd be best. I can't make concrete, admitted Miwa. But I can definitely mass produce the Doton. Great. Thank you. Of course, dear. Good luck. Let us know as soon as you're done and we'll take you shopping, gushed Kikyo. Next step in Meteor City revival was spewing out Doton. This would barely take more than a few days since it was a mindless task that really only relied on Miwa's chakra levels. Summoning Doton wasn't chakra intensive, so her clones were able to make a lot at once. Kikyo was impressed by how soon Miwa would be ready to move on to the next step. The Zoldyck matriarch offered a helping hand. As soon as Miwa had originally told Kikyo about her intentions to rebuild Meteor City, the woman had reached out and hired an architect. On the second day of covering Meteor City and Doton, Kikyo had Miwa meet with the architect to discuss planning out the new city. The man was extremely excited and honored to have such a wonderful job, and he assured Miwa he could plan for anything. So Miwa told him what she wanted. He gave her an odd look, and so Miwa demonstrated what she could do, and the man was giddy with glee. "Oh, yes," he said with great cheer. "Yes, we can make this work. I'll have the first set of designs ready in a week." "A week?" Miwa's face scrunched up, but Kikyo was unbothered by that time frame. "You need some time to rest anyway," said Kikyo. "Something like this shouldn't be overly rushed." "I suppose," agreed Miwa. "I guess I can have my clones go fishing for food for everyone. If each of her clones caught at least 5 fish in the ocean, that'd make for some decent meals for the awaiting citizens." It was the least Miwa could do for them. She had murdered a good chunk of the population, and the ones that stuck around were in it for the long haul. They had really grown on her, and she felt bad she couldn't take better care of them yet. "Okay. That settles it. I'm gonna get them a whole bunch of fish. While you're doing that, might as well send some clones to start collecting the seeds." "Good idea." Miwa knew how to follow blueprints and designs decently. As long as she was given a clear direction and shown what to do at least once, she could do it herself. Kurama told her she had spent a lot of time in her genin days doing construction work, and there was even a time she had to help rebuild her home from scratch. She did not have the memories, but the knowledge remained in her very soul. And Kurama had a very keen memory. He remembered things he didn't want to remember, including how to replicate plumbing. Kikyo had graciously hired a firm to design the city for Miwa. It was not a simple or quick process. When she had finished the minimum groundwork, laying down doton, flattening it out, then drenching it with sueton and patting it down further, she spent her days hunting for food for her citizens. She had a lot of citizens. 7 digits. Meteor City used to have over 10 million occupants, but since at least a quarter to half of them were cannibals and Miwa had a very strict no cannibals were allowed to live policy, the numbers had been drastically reduced. There were some occupants that left, but the city was a place where the unwanted gathered. They had nowhere else to go. They were nameless, faceless, unwanted bags of meat, so most of them continued to camp out and wait. Wait to see what would happen next. Or maybe they were just waiting to die. When Miwa started bringing them hordes of fish, her clones caught in the sea, they were tentatively intrigued. When she brought them wood to build fires and checked up on them every day, they started to warm up to her. They had tents, clean water. Miwa started taking water from the ocean and using a storage scroll with a filter designed into it, and decent food. A significant upgrade from the literal trash pile they had lived in. Not bad for the residents of Meteor City. Crawlo reappeared at the end of the week with a gift for Miwa. The Phantom Troop leader walked up to Miwa on her blanket. She had sensed him before she spotted him, and the blonde got up to greet him. Crawlo had something cupped in his hands. Miwa raised an eyebrow at him, and he opened his hands to reveal a butterfly with a red body and bright red wings. The tips of its wings were a darker shade of red. "This is called a hemotropic butterfly," said Crawlo. "They're originally from Zevel Island, but some have made their way to the mainland. They feed off blood." "Blood?" Miwa gasped. "Like what Minen did." "Yes," said Crawlo. "Does a butterfly count as cute?" "Super duper cute." "Perhaps this can inspire you then," he said, holding it out. "Think carefully, Miwa." Miwa accepted the lovely butterfly, smiling fondly at it. "Amen." "Thank you, Crawlo." Crawlo nodded at the flattened land. "I see you have moved on to the next phase." "I'm waiting on blueprints now," explained Miwa. "Since you helped me with an idea, how about I show you what chakra feels like?" Miwa held out her hand and Crawlo placed his hand in hers. She pulled his hand and rested it over her heart. Carefully, gently, she pulled her chakra out of her body and into Crawlo's hand. She made sure to filter out Kurama's chakra, knowing it wouldn't end well for Crawlo if the man touched the dangerous energy. Crawlo was difficult to read, but Miwa thought she felt his demeanor relax upon feeling her chakra. He said softly, "It is very warm." Miwa smiled at that. "Thank you. Are you ready for your first lesson?" "Yes." Miwa took a deep breath, then started to explain. The general layout of the city was finalized a few days after Crawlo returned. It'd be tough work, but Miwa figured she could handle it. She had to steal a lot of supplies, but that was fine. By that point her clones had sent up Hiration marks in a lot of cities. Kikyo only had to do a quick search on the internet to find the right warehouses and boom, they were robbed overnight. Kaluto actually decided to tag along with Miwa when she robbed them. Killua's young brother was very interested in spending more time with Miwa, but Kikyo didn't want him anywhere near Meteor City, so the only time they could hang out was when Miwa was doing things outside the city, like robbing warehouses and swimming in the ocean. With the blueprints in hand and a clear direction, Miwa was able to start properly working on building the city. She had collected the seeds of hybrid Hyperion trees designed for longer branches and planted them in specific parts of the designated city area. Then she used Sage Mode to channel nature chakra into them and boom, giant trees. After all, she wanted her city to be a tree city. As many buildings as possible in the trees. She wasn't a Mokuton user, but she could make sturdy trees by channeling nature chakra directly into them. As long as she continued to feed the trees nature chakra over the next month or so, they'd become very strong. Certainly, strong enough to handle the climate. The residents were certainly surprised to find such tall trees popping up in a matter of minutes. One of them even had the courage to ask Miwa what her plans were. When she explained them, they gave her a funny look but then grinned and wished her luck. Now every time Miwa successfully grew a tree where the crowd of residents could see her, they cheered. They even started to name some of the trees, which Miwa thought was actually pretty cute. From dawn to afternoon Miwa grew trees and spared some clones to help tutor Crawlo in chakra. In the evening she'd dine with Kikyo and Kaluto, then either go to sleep in a fancy hotel with Crawlo or rob some factories. Miwa's life had settled into a comfortable routine. And then they got a visitor. He was there in the morning when Miwa teleported her and Crawlo to the city at their usual spot. Phaeton! Miwa squealed excitedly, rushing towards the Dar assassin. Did you come to see me? Phaeton's brow creased as he looked at her with plain disdain. Ah, that look reminds me so much of you when I call you Tsundere. I love it. Damn it, Miwa. Phaeton ignored her, looking directly at Crawlo. Checking in. Everything is going fine, said Crawlo. What do you think of the city so far? Hard to believe this was Meteor City. I almost walked by it, said Phaeton. Did you take care of it? Asked Crawlo. No. Unusual for you. I'm an assassin, not a tracker, said Phaeton flatly. Miwa blinked slowly, looking between the two men. What's going on? Hisoka has been removed from the troop, quietly explained Crawlo. Oh. That's good. You can do a lot better. Miwa brightened as a thought came to her. She eagerly turned to face the dark-haired boy. Phaeton, if you're going to stay here, do you want to join the trade? Phaeton looked over at Crawlo. Trade? Her abilities are not nen and can be taught, explained Crawlo in that velvety soft voice. I am helping her develop her nin in exchange. That clone thing? Probed Phaeton. Shadow clone? Yeah, you can learn it, she said. It's really good for espionage because when the clone pops, you get its memories. Extremely useful, commented the assassin. Miwa nodded in agreement. Shadow clones were her most versatile ability. Phaeton had a decent non-core. If he was able to utilize chakra, he could probably make a dozen or so clones before getting tired. Phaeton shifted his weight, dark eyes assessing. How far into training are you? She is a specialist, but she has not determined what her goal should be, explained Crawlo for her. Miwa nodded. I only know what I want it to look like, not what it should do, she admitted shyly. Kinda silly, huh? Phaeton let out a slow sigh. What do you lack? He asked. I dunno. I know a lot of destruction abilities and I know some stuff for all the main elements. I'm not very good at Suiton or Doton, but I can compensate by pumping the abilities full of chakra. Phaeton snorted derisively. Mass destruction is easy with enough power. What skills do you lack? Your clones can cover intelligence gathering, are they the only things you have for it? Miwa shook her head. I can use genjutsu. Illusions? Yeah. You know? I am a shinobi, he said, but genjutsu is not my specialty. Miwa's eyes widened. She hadn't even thought about finding other shinobi. What a pleasant surprise. Phaeton pressed on, what else? Do you have abilities for one-on-one? Yes. Escape? Yes. Survival? Well, for me to survive, she said slowly. I guess I don't really have anything to help others except for my Hiration. Phaeton cocked his head. Nothing in the supportive role? She shook her head. No. You know basic anatomy? Yes, she said. That was taught in the academy, and Miwa had torn enough humans apart to remember what the insides looked like. She didn't have any knowledge about how it all worked or connected, but that didn't matter since she was really good at destroying it. Or at least she hadn't considered it mattering until then. Now that it was brought to her attention, Miwa realized she had no way of helping her friends after they got hurt. She had already seen what a danger Magnet Gon was. It didn't matter if she was strong, because she wasn't constantly with them. There was always the possibility of Miwa arriving too late, or even scarier, facing an opponent Miwa and Kurama couldn't handle. What then? She could flee, but if they hurt her friends? Miwa swallowed nervously, a sudden surge of pain and anxiety ripping through her stomach. I don't want to be alone again. There were memories, too vague to give her anything more than their impressions, but strong enough she could feel the blood on her hands and the heart-stopping pain in her gut when she realized his heart stopped beating. Miwa folded her hands together as a way to stop the memory. She said, I don't know anything about helping my friends after they've been hurt. There you go, said Phaeton. Figure out how butterflies can fill in a supportive role and you'll be set. Miwa swallowed back the lump in her throat as she offered Phaeton a sweet smile. Thanks. You helped me realize something important. Don't mention it, he said flatly. He's at Sundara like you, too. Shut the fuck up. It's rare to see you treat someone so kindly, Krallo sardonically observed. Phaeton gave him a nasty look. Gon and Killua and Bisky. Era? What's this? Bisky asked. Gon had emptied out one of the small pocket storage scrolls Miwa had given him. Killua and Gon were proficient enough in chakra to use the storage scrolls, which made their lives infinitely easier. Gon really liked being able to fit several backpacks worth of stuff in a single slim scroll that fit in his front pocket. He was currently searching through the junk store to see if he could find a skinning knife. He saw a river further down and was craving for some freshly grilled fish. Upon Bisky's question, Gon looked up to find that she was reaching for a stack of. No! Gon exclaimed with wide eyes. Unfortunately for her, she touched one of the tags and it immediately exploded in a rainbow color of sparklers that sent her flying into the air. Killua, who had been reading through the chakra book Miwa made for them, her grammar was terrible so she mostly drew pictures of what to do next in their training, looked up when the explosion went off. Bisky, singed and coughing, returned to them a few minutes later. What the hell was that? It's an explosive tag, said Gon, taking the stack of explosive notes and quickly putting them away. Our friend made them for us. If anyone but me touches this stack, it self-detonates. How dangerous. Shouldn't touch other people's stuff then, snarked Killua. That earned him a quick smack on the back of his head. He glared petulantly at the blonde, muttering under his breath, bargain Miwa. Gon heard and covered his mouth to not snicker. Even if Bisky didn't know who Miwa was, she got the implication quick and proceeded to smack him again. Chapter 26, Hyena 4. Chunky Exposition Chapter. A Cruel Necessity. Construction of the city had been going, relatively, smoothly. There were some hiccups, the blueprints weren't perfect and required some revision when Miwa put them into practice, but nothing that couldn't be fixed. Miwa was adamant to keep her city healthy, so the firm advised her to be eco-friendly and green. Miwa knew the basics of electricity, ground to ground, power to power, but she wasn't an expert by any means whatsoever. Kikyo accepted everything Miwa had stolen from the underground auctions in exchange for hiring electricians and engineers to help Miwa build power for her city. They were going to use something called solar power, which sounded neato. Unfortunately, the equipment for it was expensive, which encouraged Miwa to obtain them through less legal means. She was perfectly happy to steal everything she needed from 2 countries over. Once the power and plumbing were set up, Miwa could get started on constructing the actual buildings in the treetops. Miwa was very adept at the carpentry side of things. Even if she did not have the specific memories, she knew she had rebuilt a lot of homes in her previous village. Everything would be linked through roads on branches, or bridges, although the firm advised Miwa to include some ground roads for people passing by. Miwa didn't really want to mess with concrete, so for the moment the roads were just extra flattened dirt with crushed up rocks over top. Miwa had dug out a giant hole in the center of the city. She poured in and smoothed out several meters of thick clay and rocks all throughout it to keep the polluted soil from seeping in. Then she dumped scrolls and scrolls of filtered water into the hole to create a lake. The architects advised Miwa to prepare several canals from the lake to other areas in case of overflow. Miwa did exactly that, pleased with their foresight to think ahead. It was a slow process, but she was happy with the results so far. Once she had enough buildings, she'd direct the residents into the city, then work on the farming areas. She had no idea what to do for the economy. Meteor City was as broke could get, but she could at least make them self-sufficient. The little details could be worked out later. Some residents were already thinking ahead. A couple of them suggested she put trout in the lake. Miwa worried it would contaminate it, but they told her they could boil the water and it was better to have more food sources. She didn't see a reason to argue. Miwa sent a few dozen clones out each day to hunt for trout and other lake fish. Pretty much any fish that looked healthy and lived in a lake somewhere was taken back and dumped in. Not all of them survived the change in environment, but that was fine. While her clones worked, Miwa spent her time tutoring Phaeton and Krallo in chakra control, and they taught her more and more about Nen. She thought Gon and Killua were pretty smart, and they are, but Krallo and Phaeton picked up chakra twice as fast. Was it easier because they were already Nen masters and could distinctly feel their Nen, or were they simply prodigies? Miwa didn't know. Either way, she was impressed. They had the leaf exercise down within a week. And at the end of that week, Miwa had a starting idea for her Nen ability. I think I know what I want my ability to look like, said Miwa, her cheeks turning red from embarrassment. She wasn't sure if her ability would seem silly. She had never made up an ability before, after all. Kurama was encouraging, but she had to privately admit he could be a little biased when it came to her. Krallo shut his book. Oh, Miwa beckoned him closer. Humoring her, Krallo leaned down so she could whisper in his ear. He said, "That's doable. Have you been keeping corpses?" "Yeah, huh. I thought maybe the cannibals would want a barbecue later with us, but then I realized maybe I shouldn't have cannibals in my city," admitted Miwa. "'Cause, cannibals might, not make good citizens." "Most would agree with that," dryly agreed Phaeton. Miwa flushed. "Yeah. I'm just killing the cannibals I find now," said Miwa, shifting her weight anxiously. "I've got a lot of corpses now. If you've enough blood to spare, let's practice," said Krallo. Miwa agreed, then winced when 100 clones popped at once and their memories flooded into her. Her clones were grouped together and split to do different tasks. Whenever a division of her clones had finished their accomplished task, they dispelled themselves so Miwa could create a fresh batch to work on a new project. It was disorienting every time. "Oh. Looks like another dropship is coming in," observed Phaeton. Miwa's head whipped around to where the assassin was looking and found that a dozen airships were flying in. "No," she whispered. "I will not allow it. If you continue to destroy all the trash ships that come in, you might anger the surrounding countries," said Krallo. "I don't care." "Excellent policy," sardonically replied Phaeton. "As it may be," said Krallo carefully, "I would suggest you confirm they're here to dump trash first." Miwa pursed her lips. Fine. All but one of the airships was there to dump trash, but luckily for them they refrained from doing so. Instead, they landed near the outskirts of the forest. Miwa headed over to them in a flash of golden light, fully prepared to blow them all to smithereens if they thought to undo all the hard work she had put forth. She stood before them, her arms crossed over her chest as she waited to see if anyone would come out. It was several minutes until one of the airships opened up and a tiny man with doe-like eyes and curly brown hair stepped out. He reminded Miwa of a baby deer. Behind him were a few men and women in black suits that surveyed the forested area. The small man hurried over to Miwa, fiddling with his fingers. Are you, the new leader of Meteor City?" "New leader?" Miwa blinked at that title. It was odd someone had actually called her that. It made sense, she did take over it, but no one had verbally acknowledged it. "I am," said Miwa, straightening her shoulders. She wondered what kind of impression she had made as a leader. She was as clean as she reasonably could be, but she knew her clothes had some tears and stains on them that weren't easily fixed. Miwa didn't feel a rush to replace her tattered clothes until she was finished with construction work. And then training, since she was working with blood and bloodstains, were hard to get out. "I guess when I go shopping with Kaluto I'll have to find something that's cute and good for leaders," thought Miwa. What would that be? Asking the wrong person. I don't wear clothes. Oh. Right. A's. I'm with Makani Removal, nervously said the man. We're hired by surrounding countries to transport their trash here. But our last drop ships were destroyed. Yes, said Miwa blandly. And, A's. The man shifted uncomfortably, reeking of sour fear and anxiety. I'm here to confirm the A state of the city. The A garbage is gone? Yes. Where was it moved to? Nowhere. I destroyed it, said Miwa. The man stared at her in disbelief. What? You? Yes, said Miwa, her eyes narrowed. Is that an issue? No, he said quickly, eyes widening. Then would you please give me one moment? Sure. The man hurried away from her, pulling out a phone and calling someone. He started to speak in a different language, so even if Miwa could hear the conversation, she didn't understand anything that was said. After several minutes of talking rapidly over the phone, the man returned to Miwa. Would you mind destroying the trash we have? The man asked. To confirm? Miwa didn't see a reason to refute. She had plenty of faulty storage scrolls left to use. The man directed her to one of the airships, opening a drop door for the trash to pour out and onto the storage scroll that sucked it up. All the trash fits in there? The man asked in wonder. Does it get full? Yep. Just burn it once it is, said Miwa. Is that patented? He asked. I dunno, said Miwa. What's a patent? The man smiled. Exclusive rights. Then yeah. I'm the only one trained to do it, but I'm training a few others, said Miwa. The man's smile widened even more so. What's your name again? Miwa introduced herself. And you? Naoko, he said. Miwa, would you like a job? I dunno. We still need to get rid of the trash, Naoko began, but instead of dumping it, would you be willing to accept it in your scrolls? We would pay you, of course. Miwa didn't really like the idea of being a trash dump, but if I could teach others how to make the scrolls, then they could do it and be paid for it, right? Others, like other citizens in Meteor City. Sounds like a good way to start an economy. But Miwa wasn't very familiar with money and whatnot, especially in that world. So, she said, I'm okay to accept that, but would you mind sending the details to my mother? The man nodded happily. Yes. Do you have contact information for her? Yeah. I've got a phone number when you're ready. And that was how Miwa got a job getting rid of trash for Makani Removal. They even paid her a whole bunch to go to their other dump sites and get rid of trash. It was gross as hecking hell, but Kikyo assured her the money was well worth it and could be put to good use for the city. Miwa promised herself to find some decent citizens and teach them how to use storage scrolls so they could fulfill that nasty-ass job in her place. She already had a dozen in mind when she brought food and other essentials to the tent grounds. Some of the citizens would talk to her. The younger ones were the most willing to approach her, and she thought their enthusiasm to befriend her was rather cute. She started to steal some toys and games in other countries to bring back to them because she loved seeing how bright their faces got. She figured she could pick a dozen or so from that group, after they learned how to write. Apparently, none of them knew how, they even struggled to hold a pen properly. She'd have to find a way to get some teachers in her city. Just one problem after another, Miwa bemoaned to herself. Gosh, I hope Gon and Killua are having an easier time playing that video game. Gon and Killua and Bisky. Call me Bargain Miwa again and I'll knock you out for a week, threatened Bisky. Killua resisted the urge to do exactly that, choosing to instead redirect his attention on training. Bisky was a slave driver. Neither of the boys could argue with the results she was already producing, but it wasn't always fun. Even with Gon's cheerful attitude, some training could be exhausting. Killua was able to survive off of little rest, but even he had his limits. He was starting to get grouchy. It didn't help that Gon sighed every time it was bedtime and mumbled, I miss my heater. Who the heck is this Miwa anyway? Bisky grumbled. The best pillow ever, explained Gon. She's warm and soft. A pillow? You're comparing me to a pillow? She's an actual person, said Killua, rolling his eyes. And Killua's fiancé, added Gon with a cheeky grin. Stop telling every. Fiancé? Bisky laughed loudly. Her pink eyes sparkled with mischief. She couldn't resist poking fun at the boy. In a light tone, she teased, "A brat like him? She must be insane." "She is a little insane," agreed Gon, grinning at Bisky's joking behavior. "But that's what we like about her. She is not." Killua suddenly remembered the things Miwa had already done. "Okay, she's a little unhinged. As soon as they get married, she'll show us a whole bunch of neat techniques," chirped Gon. "We aren't actually getting married," Killua sighed. "Oh yes you are," said Gon, a glint in his eyes. "I'm getting that Hiration." "Then you marry her." "She's my pillow, I can't do that," protested Gon. "Why don't you both marry her?" snarked Bisky. Then she held up index finger and shaped her nen to the number 6. 6. Gon and Killua exclaimed as soon as they saw her finger. "Bingo!" Gon was a little faster though, so "Killua, you can do 1,000 push-ups." Killua groaned as he dropped to the floor to do his push-ups while Gon smirked at him. Miwa. In a secluded area of the created forest, Miwa stood before a large, bloated corpse. It smelled horrible, but the scent of rotting flesh was something Miwa had become accustomed to. The blonde girl was not alone. Chrollo and Phaeton stood a good distance behind her to watch the process. Separating Nen from chakra was not an easy process for her. It took her a solid minute of uninterrupted concentration before Miwa could create enough Nen to actually use. A noticeable improvement from the several minutes it took at the start of training, but still a fair distance away from being usable in combat. After Miwa procured enough Nen, she slowly mixed her Nen in the congealed blood of a man's corpse. The body twitched once, twice, then spasmed. At once there was an eruption of conjured hemotropic butterflies. They swarmed out of the corpse, each of them made up of the congealed blood of Miwa's victim. Miwa gasped as they circled in the air around her, swarming her and rhythmically flapping their delicate wings. "Beautiful," she whispered as she stood at the center. Chrollo, who stood a fair bit behind her to watch, inclined his head to her. "It is an excellent start." He approached her and the butterflies peeled away to allow him into the swarm. The two of them stood back to back as the butterflies continued to circle them. "Did you know that a swarm of butterflies is called a kaleidoscope?" "Really? That's a pretty name." One of the butterflies landed on Miwa's nose, tickling her. She giggled cutely. Chrollo casually asked, "Have you figured out what they're supposed to do?" Kind of. "I gave it a lot of thought since talking with Phaeton," confirmed Miwa brightly. "I want them to help my friends. I thought at first they should heal them, but then I realized I have no idea how to make that happen." Chrollo nodded. "It could cause more harm than good if you blindly will them to heal. If you don't understand exactly how human biology works, you could accidentally cause mutations in the cells when infusing your Nin into someone." Miwa gave a brief nod. Kurama had warned her of that as well. Nen was not chakra, and the two did not have enough of an understanding of Nin and human biology to risk it. "I'm not sure which direction to take them and outside them wanting to be helpful." Phaeton, who had been watching everything at a distance, quietly said, "Exorcism would be helpful." "Ha! There are certain Nin users that can cast curses on others," Phaeton explained. "Removing Nin from another person is tricky. Post-mortem Nin curses are annoyingly potent. Finding a capable exorcist is rarer than finding gold." "Oh." Miwa smiled at Phaeton. "Then that seems like a good direction to start with." "I know a few abilities you could practice removing," said Chrollo. "We'll need to find some subjects." "I can hunt down some meanies," said Miwa. Phaeton had a tired look. "Meanies? There's a lot of mean people in the other cities." Chrollo shrugged. "Whenever you're ready." "Thank you both very much." "Don't mention it," Phaeton warned. Meteor City smelled lovely now. The nasty air had been replaced by the smell of healthy trees and a sparkling clean lake. It was a delight for Miwa to be in the city now, and so she no longer wanted to return to the hotel to sleep. Instead, she camped out near the lake, enjoying the sound of the waves lapping against the shore and admiring the pretty stars that twinkled above. Miwa loved sleeping outside, especially with such fair weather. Phaeton and Chrollo did not mind it, both camping out with her. Miwa noticed that Phaeton was not the sort of man to complain about much except when Miwa got too close to him. For some reason, he didn't like it when she hugged him unexpectedly. Chrollo was nicer about it, accepting her random hugs with a pat on the back or head even if his face remained stoic. One crisp night the three sat around a fire. It was late into the night and Miwa was struggling to stay awake. She had curled up next to Krallo, who remained seated on the blanket. Phaeton sat across the fire from them, methodically sharpening and polishing some of his weapons. Krallo shut his book. Miwa? Miwa yawned, rubbing at her eyes. What made you want to create this city? Krallo asked. What use do you have for it? Miwa didn't respond for a minute, her tired mind considering how to explain her desire. I just want to make sure there's a place that anyone can live at, no matter their status or race, Miwa mumbled. I have a friend. He's immortal. I want to make sure he has a place to call home when I'm gone. I want to make a home for him and people like him. Kit. Miwa was too tired to stay awake. Her head fell to the side and landed in Krallo's lap. The last thing she remembered was feeling Krallo pat her head until sleep lulled her into warm dreams. Third-person POV. Ping. Ah, said Shellnurk. The blond young man from the Phantom Troop looked over at his companion and gave him a grin. I got a message from the boss. Nobunaga adjusted his grip on his samurai sword, a frown on his face. The two had completed a mission in the Kaken Empire and had boarded an airship to leave. Whenever Shellnark had a dangerous mission, no matter the level of danger, he had to be accompanied by another member of the troop. It wasn't that Shellnark was incapable of completing the mission on his own, rather he was that essential for the troop. His mind-controlling nin ability coupled with his savant level of espionage and information gathering made him an invaluable member. Nobunaga volunteered to go with him. The two actually got along quite well and worked efficiently together. Shellnark was brilliant, a terrifying tactician and genius at espionage, whereas Nobunaga was one of the Phantom Troop's best fighters. The samurai wasn't the best at coming up with ideas, but he was damn good at following them. A target? Asked Nobunaga, surprised the boss was reaching out to them. Pakunada usually assigned missions whenever the boss was off, doing whatever. Sometimes Krallo would vanish for a couple of months after a big heist. It wasn't anything unexpected. Although this time, the troop members had the fortune to know where the boss was that time around, supposedly in Meteor City with the Fox Girl. Shellnurk shook his head, smiling brightly. Nope. He wants us to go to Meteor City. Nobunaga raised an eyebrow at that. Huh? Does he say what for? He wants my help to train Miwa, said Shellnurk. Apparently she's learning how to exorcise Ning and he wants her to dispel my mind control. Nobunaga beamed. If you're training her, that means she's a member now, right? Ah, I knew she'd be a good fit. We'll know for sure once we get there. At the very least, I'm curious about Meteor City. Word on the grapevine says there's a forest there now. Ha! No way. A forest? Nobunaga laughed loudly. Shellnark smiled. Wanna bet? Put. You're on. Chapter 27, Hyena v. I'm back. Already have the next few chapters pre-written too. Happy face. Miwa yawned widely, rubbing at her eyes. Everything was coming together bit by bit. The city of trash was no more, replaced by a vibrant forest. Most of the infrastructure had finished construction and now the residents were moving into houses. Miwa now spent her days on the logistics side. The city was self-sufficient. Most of the power was derived from renewable energy solar panels at the top of the trees, and wind panels on the outskirts. Managing that power wasn't something Miwa knew much about, so she had to hire people who did, and in turn have them teach a select few residents of the new city. She also had to find some tree and bug experts that would look after the forest. She was fortunate enough that the one she too assisted in relocating fell in love with the city and wanted to permanently live there. So, infrastructure, check. Power, check. Food, check. Water, check. Economy, whip. Government, whip. Education, whip. Medical, whip. Miscellaneous things she hadn't thought of yet, whip. Miwa? What? Miwa blinked tiredly, looking up at Krallo. There had been a kind of town hall that was built. The city planners said the city would need a central building for its main government body. Kikyo agreed with them and insisted on them designing an office Miwa would be comfortable in. Miwa had been hesitant at that, but then Kikyo pointed out something that Miwa hadn't really thought about. You're going to be the leader of that city, aren't you? Miwa had only wanted to make a good place for Kurama to live in after her death. She hadn't thought about ruling it. She was going to be heading back out on adventures with Gon and Killua as soon as they were done with their game, after all. But once the idea was in Miwa's head, she couldn't disregard it entirely, so she talked to Krallo about it. He was smart, after all. He read a lot of books and seemed to always have an answer for her. Krallo, Phaeton, and Miwa were in Miwa's designated office at the constructed town hall. After Miwa had explained that Kikyo told her to become the new leader of the city, Miwa relayed the idea to Krallo and asked for his input. The Phantom Troop leader was silent for so long that Miwa almost dozed standing up. When he finally did speak, Miwa was startled. Sorry, said Miwa, rubbing her eyes again. Phaeton's eyes narrowed as he assessed her. Coldly, he asked, when was the last time you slept? I dunno. I'm sorry, could you please repeat what you said, Krallo? I said, Krallo repeated, it would be good for the city if you did take leadership, even though I don't plan to stick around indefinitely? Miwa curiously asked. A good government should be able to operate independently of its central leader when the need arises, said Krallo. You mentioned you wanted to create a safe place for your friend. As a leader, you could influence the laws to assist with that. Oh. Miwa smiled. I hadn't thought of that. You're right. Can you also be a leader? Krallo smiled in amusement at that. You want the leader of the Phantom Troop to also be the leader of this city? You're super smart, said Miwa. And you clearly already have experience leading. Why not? Phaeton dryly said, we're wanted in nearly every country. So, it'd put a target on the city if I accepted such a public position, explained Krallo. Wouldn't they already be targeting it since they know it's where the Phantom Troop is based? Asked Miwa. There's a difference between operating in the shadows and blatantly showing off, sharply reproached Phaeton. Although the lower half of his face was covered by his collar, judging from how venomous his tone was, Miwa could perfectly picture the sneer on his face. Although it's likely this city will be targeted regardless by the mafia given that the major mafias operated several big operations here. And you slaughtered nearly all of their men. Nearly all? I missed some? Miwa gasped. Not all mafia members are cannibals, Krallo succinctly pointed out. Oh darn. Krallo cocked his head, his stoic expression ever unchanging. The mafias are still recovering from the York New fiasco. They were hemorrhaging and your massacre dealt a fatal blow to several of the groups. Whatever is left will not be in a position to seek vengeance for years to come. Even so, we shouldn't brazenly taunt them. It'd not only put you in needless danger, but the city, Phaeton stiffly rebuked. The mafias aren't our only concern. Krallo nodded once. You are correct. Who else is our concern? Asked Miwa. All of our past victims, dismissed Phaeton. Countries, world leaders, powerful people. We haven't been too picky on our targets. Oh. But? Miwa frowned. I want this place to be safe for you guys as well. This place should be, haven. Forever. An eternal sun? Krallo said with an odd twitch of his lips. Miwa's brow furrowed. I guess. I should start thinking about city defenses. Ugh. I have to make intenseals. Ugh, Kurama echoed, his voice laced with plain disdain. No. Not intenseals. They always give us migraines. Do you have a better idea? Intenseals were S-classed Fuinjutsu seals. Not only were they costly to make, but the sheer amount of layers in them required a level of meticulous focus that made most Fuinjutsu masters cry. Miwa vaguely remembered a man with spiky white hair crying trying to teach her intenseals. He hated them that much. She inherited his severe hatred of them shortly after. However, in terms of defense, there were scarce few better options. The seals were created by a family that lived amongst whirlpools. Miwa didn't remember the details, only vague snippets of conversations, but after that family was destroyed, a surviving member invented them. They wanted to create a place that they could never be bothered again. They had taught it to that man with spiky white hair, who taught it to Miwa. And it was Miwa who then perfected it. She remembered. I promised you a safe place, didn't I? She retorted, rubbing tiredly at her eyes. That place will only happen if you're alive to make it happen. You haven't eaten in days. It hasn't been days. There was a knock on the door to her office. Hey. Sorry, I let myself in with the spare key. Are you okay? You missed the get-together. I'm fine, she said quickly, scrambling to get up to answer the door before the Pinkette did something drastic. But Kurama was right. She hadn't eaten in days, as she was on the cusp of an epiphany, so her legs gave out as she tried to stand and she tumbled. The door swung open, a woman with vibrant green eyes hurrying quickly to her side. You dumbass. What did you do? Hey. Sorry, Sakura. Idiot. Her stomach growled loudly. Sakura clicked her tongue, easily picking her up bridal style to carry her out. Come on. I'll get you some ramen. Thanks. If you're really grateful, stop acting like a dummy and take better care of yourself. Hey. Miwa had perfected the intent seals. Or at least as close to perfect as she thought she could get. Intent seals were, as the name implied, seals based on intent. Those who had the intention to harm would trigger the seals. Miwa had designed the seals to have an inverse reaction based on the level of malice. The more someone wanted to hurt someone else inside the barrier, the more intensely the seals would react. The seals produced a multi-layer genjutsu, heavily inspired by the Sanbai. Those who had the intent to harm would be met with a fog that would turn them around. The stronger their desire to hurt, the thicker the fog. For someone like Kurama, the seals would constantly trigger due to his naturally malicious chakra. So Miwa had to design the seals to specifically target humans. Animals or other such creations would be entirely immune. Such precedence wasn't foolproof. For the delusional, they could intend to help, but their definition of helping would be to suicide bomb, which was why additional seals were required. The seals couldn't constantly work either. Once someone was a set amount through the barrier, the seal should leave them alone. Otherwise, it'd work on any human having a bad day. There was once a man who used rain to watch over everyone in his city. He had to stay in the city at all times to do that. That wasn't an option for Miwa, but she remembered appreciating the idea. Another place had something similar. Another village hidden amongst tall trees. They used a barrier to monitor everyone who came in, and those who did not use the front door would be immediately expelled. That seemed like a good idea to supplement with the intent seals. A barrier that would mark anyone who came in another way besides a designated front door. That lost village did not use an obvious marker, so the person would not know they were monitored, but Miwa decided to do exactly that. For those who trespassed into the city, they would receive a clear burn in their skins. All could see they were a threat. She could easily add in a loud audible alarm to ring throughout the city whenever that barrier was wrongfully breached. There were only a few lifts to carry people up to the treetops. Miwa could start by setting the barrier to only work at a certain altitude, and over time, as the city expanded, adjust accordingly. One layer to dissuade the dangerous, and another layer to mark the trespasser and alert the city to their presence. Not foolproof by any means whatsoever, but certainly a strong enough combination to give the city the upper hand. Plus, Miwa couldn't think of any other standalone fuinjutsu barriers that could be maintained for years without maintenance. She'd likely have to invent them in her spare time. Kurama thankfully knew how to create those barriers himself, so he could always refresh them after Miwa had passed. She could already feel the oncoming headache creating enough intense seals to cover the city. She must have had an amusing look on her face because Phaeton snorted and looked away. You're too young to look that tired, said Krallo, his tone of light teasing. Miwa sighed. No amount of clones can speed up what I have to do next. Find jobs to start up the economy? No, they can handle that, she dismissed. Creating defense barriers, ugh. It took Miwa a solid week of misery, pain, and a fair bit of frustrated tears before she finished creating the seals. Yes, tears. Krallo walked on her crying once, seemed perturbed, left, and came back with some warm drinks that made her feel much better. He was very nice about letting her hug him afterwards, too. Phaeton, on the other hand, saw her cry, made an odd panicked noise, and promptly disappeared, at least from her sight. She could still clearly sense his nun hovering around her. He doesn't know you can sense him, commented an amused Kurama. Why is he hiding from me? That is what you call a tsundere, chortled Kurama. Well. You would know best. Hey, at least she finished it. Good timing, too, because Naoko from Makani, the trash removal company, stopped by with an abundance of teachers. The trash removal company had taken a special interest in the construction of the city, leaning heavily on charitable donations in the form of helping move businesses there and now starting up education. Naoko told Miwa it made the company look really good. Especially since Miwa was able to remove trash in an environmentally friendly way. A lot of major cities were looking to switch to Makani because of all the good press. She didn't wholly understand the details, but she understood the results. Makani looked good by helping rebuild the city, and in doing so were able to draw in more customers. More customers meant more profit. More profit meant happy company. Happy company meant more charitable donations. Miwa wasn't complaining, and neither were the citizens. Through Makani's connections, more businesses were also looking to start up in the city, which meant jobs, which meant money. Actual money being made in what used to be a literal trash dump. Miwa was told she'd have to do a few stimulus payments to get the economy jump-started, but that was fine. She had plenty of money to spare with how much she was making with Makani. The last huge hurdle Miwa would have to deal with was the actual government. Hopefully, the Zoldyck family would be able to provide some advice there. I have no idea what I'm doing, sighed Miwa as she enjoyed some tea under the gazebo with Kaluto and Kikyo. She was resting her cheeks in her hands, her elbows propped onto the table as she morosely stared into her tea. Ah, cooed Kikyo. She leaned forward, reaching and playing with one of Miwa's curls. Don't worry, dear. That's what mothers are for. To guide you. Miwa leaned into Kikyo's touch, wondering what kind of mother she was. She and Killua had an odd relationship, him scarring her face and her being proud about it, but she didn't think they hated each other. Kikyo certainly loved Killua. Miwa wasn't sure how Killua felt. He didn't talk about his family much. I could certainly use some guidance, said Miwa. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about governing. Kaluto took a dainty sip from his tea. Actually, I've already done some research. Really? Asked Miwa. What a good boy I have, praised Kikyo. What did you find? Well, said Kaluto carefully, I think Miwa would be best suited to rule in a democratic monarchy. That sounds like an oxymoron, said Miwa. Monarchy was the type of government that ruled through bloodlines, whereas democracy was supposed to be the kind where the people voted for officials. Kaluto smiled. Miwa thought he had a very cute smile. It was small and brief, but when he smiled, his whole face softened. Kaluto began to explain, you should be the leader. It's clear that your bloodline should carry that burden as well. Wait. Then couldn't I name you as my heir? In theory, I suppose. Miwa perked up at that. Okay. Then how does democracy fit in? You can't be expected to be omnipotent, said Kaluto. And who better to take care of city infrastructure than the lead architect? Who better to be the treasurer than the financial advisor hired to kickstart the economy? You should have people in place who are optimally suited to fulfill roles that you lack knowledge in. That's a lot of roles. Kaluto and Kikyo giggled briefly at that. Their giggles were similarly adorable. I've taken the liberty of compiling my research into a proposed outline, said Kaluto. It was then that Miwa noticed he had a large box at his feet. He lifted it up and placed it upon their tea table. It was filled with paperwork. If you will allow me, elder sister, I'll help draft your government. I will take any and all help, said Miwa, her cheeks a little red at being called elder sister. She hadn't been a big sister before. It looks like I really will end up teaching Killua the Hiraition. His family was so kind and accommodating to her. Kaluto gave her that cute smile again, eliciting a happy noise from Kikyo. The next morning, Miwa decided to drop by to give a thank you gift to Kaluto and Kikyo. She had stolen some pretty silk fabrics from another country and thought the two would enjoy using them to make their clothes or something similar. Both were fashionable people, and Miwa had learned they both designed their own clothes from scratch. Miwa handed the fabrics over to the butler, Goto, and was about to head back to the city when Kaluto came into the room. Elder sister, Kaluto greeted with a polite bow. Hi Kaluto, chirped Miwa. A thought occurred to Miwa. He actually hasn't seen the city yet, has he? Considering how much work he had contributed to helping set up the government, it was a shame he hadn't had a chance to admire the city. There were a lot of nifty things already available in the city that Miwa thoroughly enjoyed. Like bakeries. "Do you want to visit?" asked Miwa, holding out her hand. Kaluto hesitated, bringing his hand first up to use his sleeve to cover his mouth. He deliberated for a few moments before he tentatively placed his hand in Miwa's. In a flash of golden light, Miwa teleported both of them to the town hall. Her office was decently sized. There were 2 couches that sat opposite of each other and a sturdy coffee table in between. At the end of her office was a large desk, and behind it double doors that lead to a balcony. Miwa gave his hand a little squeeze as she guided him to the balcony that overlooked the city. It was a marvel. The town hall was built on the tallest central tree. Her office balcony overlooked the majority of the city, each of the branches winding together to form wooden roads. Houses were seamlessly built into the trunks and branches. A lot of the homes had flowers or vines growing on or around them, filling the once nauseating air with a delicate floral scent. The trees had been trimmed to allow beams of sunlight to filter through. In between pockets of shade, golden light trickled down and bathed the city. Below, people were moving about, talking, carrying boxes, and continuing to build the city. The area directly below the town hall had been designated as a commercial zone, so shops had been set up. It seemed like a new one was opening up every day. "Pretty neat, huh?" said Miwa, pride in her voice as she looked out at the city. A breeze passed through, letting her catch hints of the man-made lake she had created at the bottom of the forest. She turned to look at Kaluto. The feminine boy was looking around with wide, white eyes. In a melodic tone he whispered, "Yes. It is very neat." Miwa's eyes brightened. "I'll show you around. There's this new bakery I really love." She turned away, tugging Kaluto along. She had a hum in her heart, excited and joyful to show off her proud creation to one of her friends. Kaluto may not have been gone or Killua, but Miwa had rapidly grown fond of him. He was Killua's precious little brother, after all. He was kind to her, easy to talk to, and best of all, he was cute and liked cute things. A comrade of cuteness. Your hand. Ha? Miwa blinked. "Something wrong?" "We're still holding, never mind," mumbled Kaluto. He hid the lower half of his face behind the sleeve of his free hand. "Please lead the way, Miwa." Miwa smiled warmly. "Amen." Miwa happily showed Kaluto around, stopping by several of the shops. Kaluto didn't speak much during his tour. He kept hiding his face behind his sleeve, only lowering it to smile back at Miwa when she asked him a question. A lot of the civilians said hi to Miwa, though. Ever since the majority of the population had moved into their new homes, they had become more comfortable with Miwa. Some would even call out to her and strike up a conversation. She couldn't recall all their names, but the ones that frequently sought her out she made a point to remember. Kaluto was silent during each greeting. Even when Miwa tried to introduce him, the most he'd do was narrow his gaze and coldly study them until they got uncomfortable and left. Still, Miwa thought he was enjoying himself. He didn't let go of her hand the entire time, and when no one was around he would smile softly at her. As the afternoon waned on, Miwa spotted a new crepe shop. She pointed it out to Kaluto and asked, "Do you want some?" "Sure," he demurred. "Yay. I've only had one crepe before," Miwa said, heading over to the booth with Kaluto. Good afternoon." "Good afternoon," said the booth owner, beaming upon seeing Miwa. "What can I get for you two today?" Miwa squinted at the board, slowly reading the options. "I'll take a, St. strawberry ch cheesecake?" "What about you, Kaluto?" "I'll try the chocolate L lovers," said Kaluto, his eyes narrowed as he peered at the board. "Coming right up," said the owner with great cheer. "Consider them on the house." "Ah, thank you." Miwa watched with rapt attention at how quickly the owner prepared them. She knew for a fact crepes weren't easy to make, but the owner made them look easy. He added on a lot of toppings, and even gave Miwa extra whipped cream on top. She happily accepted her crepe, with Kaluto gracefully taking his own. She thanked the owner before she and Kaluto continued their tour. Her first bite made her smile ear to ear in delight. It was cool, sweet, fruity, and had that tangy taste only cream cheese could replicate. "That's delicious. Kaluto, want to try?" "But, okay," said Kaluto, leaning down to take a bite out of her crepe. "Ah. very good. Right? Would you like to try mine? He offered, holding his chocolate crepe down for her. Oh. Yes, please, said Miwa, taking a bite out of his crepe. I think I found my favorite shop. Kaluto smiled kindly in amusement at her. You said that earlier about the tea shop. That's also a favorite. You can have more than one, he teased her. She said, taking another bite out of her crepe and savoring it. You have some. Kaluto gestured to her nose. Miwa blinked. Ha? Have some what? As they were still holding hands, and Kaluto was holding his crepe with his free hand, he was very careful in maneuvering. He stretched out a finger with his crepe hand, wiping at her nose. He pulled back to reveal some whipped cream on his fingertip, then licked his finger clean. Oh, said Miwa, realizing she must have had whipped cream on her nose. She giggled. Oops. Thanks, Kaluto. You are welcome. The two enjoyed their crepes in comfortable silence. Kaluto admired the scenery and pleasant atmosphere, marveling at how much of a drastic change Meteor City had undergone. Can't really call it Meteor City anymore, can you? He mused. Kaluto gestured around them, to the bustling streets, the sounds of children laughing, the beautiful flowers in bloom. This Meteor City is a thing of the past. What you have created deserves its own name. I couldn't agree more. Miwa and Kaluto turned around to find Krallo approaching them. Flanking him were two members of the troupe Miwa had previously met at Yorknew, Nobunaga and Shellnurk. Nobunaga was the kindly samurai, and Shellnurk was the cheerful blonde boy with an innocent smile that didn't match his sadistic gaze. Hi! Miwa greeted. Who's this? Asked Shellnurk, nodding at Kaluto, who warily eyed them. This is Kaluto. He's one of my best friend's little brothers, introduced Miwa. Kaluto, this is Krallo, Nobunaga, and Shellnurk. They're my friends. Hey kid, said Nobunaga. Whoa, that's quite the glare. Miwa turned to look at Kaluto, but she didn't see any glares. He looked stoic, hiding behind his sleeve once again. Krallo raised his hand to Miwa, gesturing for her forward. Miwa let go of Kaluto's hand, hopping forward. Krallo patted the top of her head. Did you have fun today? There's a new crepe shop that we went to. I had a strawberry cheesecake. It was really good. Strawberry cheesecake is my favorite kind of crepe, said Shellnurk, bending down to make eye contact with her. His lips turned up in a coy smile. I hope you'll take me to the shop tomorrow. Sure, said Miwa. Hey. Don't forget about me, said Nobunaga with a grin. I want a proper tour of this place. Okay. I'll show you everything. Nobunaga reached forward and patted the top of her head. I'll look forward to it. You did an amazing job so far. Hey. Well worth losing the bet, Shellnurk said, nudging Nobunaga. Yeah. Shut up and stop being a sore winner. Miwa tilted her head. What brings you both here? Boss, they said. They're going to help you train with your nin, said Krallo. Oh. Please take care of me, said Miwa with a quick bow. Kaluto politely cleared his throat. Elder sister? It's getting late. Oh, sorry. I'll talk to you all later. I gotta get Kaluto home before it gets late, she said, turning back around and taking Kaluto's offered hand. Bye-bye, chuckled Shellnurk as Kaluto glared at him. As the sun dipped down and the moon rose up, Miwa climbed to the top of the town hall where the Phantom Troop members rested. Krallo had become fond of the spot, usually taking a book up to read under the moonlight. And where Krallo went, Phaeton was sure to be nearby as his silent guard. That night Krallo and Phaeton were joined by Nobunaga and Shellnurk. Nobunaga had taken a seat next to Phaeton, admiring the full moon. Shellnurk sat at the edge of the rooftop, idly swinging his legs as he played on his phone. He turned his head to greet Miwa. Hey little girl. Hi cute boy, returned Miwa. Phaeton scoffed. Don't worry, you're cuter, said Miwa with an innocent smile. Ouch, said Shellnurk. I always like to imagine myself as the cutest member. You're too nice, she said. I can be mean. Curious, Miwa asked, how mean? Shellnurk's lips curled into something that might have made Miwa swoon if she were older. I prefer psychological trauma. Maiming gets old and the pain will dull. Mental scars can destroy more thoroughly. You say that like I don't include psychological warfare in my techniques, muttered Phaeton. Shellnark shrugged. It's over so quickly with you. No build up. It's called efficiency. I call it boring. Which is better? Doing something fun but inefficient, or doing something efficient but not having fun? What's the point of doing anything if you can't have fun with it? Kurama retorted. A life without fun is a monotone existence that makes death preferable. Shellnark patted the spot next to him, and Miwa took a seat beside him. He was very bubbly in a toxic kind of way. He had a bright smile, an innocent-looking face, but Miwa could feel the venom underneath him. His chakra reminded Miwa a lot like a poisonous flower. Pretty to look at. Deadly to touch. Have you thought about a new name for the city? Asked Shellnark. No, Miwa admitted. I'm not really good with names. What kind of government did you decide on? Asked Krallo. She had told him earlier the day she was having tea with Kikyo specifically to pick out the direction of the government. Democratic monarchy, explained Miwa. Kaluto's putting the guidelines together. Nobunaga leaned back from where he sat, letting out a low hum. Then you'll be a queen? Miwa's face reflexively scrunched up at that. A suggestion, if I may, Krallo intoned, shutting the book he was reading with a sharp snap. Gladly, said Miwa. Krallo stood up, making a graceful single gesture out to the city. A city forgotten now shines. You have transformed a wasteland into a paradise. Meteors are trash that fell from the sky, forgotten and abandoned by the stars themselves. But this city? It shines too brilliantly to ever be overlooked again. It can be a lifelong sun. No, perhaps an eternal sun. Therefore, I would propose you name this country the Empire of the Sun, this city Soleil, and you, the Empress. Empire and Empress, that's way too grand. Miwa fidgeted. Not grand enough, I'd say, scoffed Kurama. Empire is right. A city for now, but as things continue to grow and take over more of the land, this place will flourish. Especially under our guidance. If you like it. Miwa offered Krallo a tentative smile. She'd only have a century, max, here, whereas Kurama would spend his entire immortal life there. She wanted him to have the final say, since he was the biggest reason she was doing all of this. Thank you, said Miwa. I'll go with that, then. Krallo gave her one of his rare smiles. Brief, small, and surprisingly gentle. I'm glad you like it. Shellnark leaned closer to Miwa. Say, got any open positions in your new government? I have nothing concrete, Miwa admitted. Great. Nobunaga and I can run your security department, said Shellnark with a wide grin. I'm pretty handy with computers. You want to join? Miwa asked in surprise. But I thought. She looked over at Krallo and Phaeton. If they want to paint a bigger target on their back, let them, snorted Phaeton. I wouldn't mind staying here waiting for the next heist, said Shellnark with a shrug. You agree, right? Nobunaga? It's pretty nice, Nobunaga agreed, scratching his chin. Might get boring after a while, though. Then the boss'll have to hurry up and plan our next heist. Krallo made an acknowledging noise at that. Shellnark glanced back at Miwa again, smiling once more. When do you think you'll have some free time? Free time for what? Training, of course. That's why the boss called us here, so we could help you create your nin technique. Oh. Miwa brightened. See, can we do that tomorrow? No reason not to. Miwa beamed in response. Oh wow, said Shellnark. You're a cute kid. Miwa's cheeks turned pink. Ow, said Shellnark, wincing when something hit the back of his head. He turned out to glare in the direction of Phaeton, Krallo, and Nobunaga. Okay, which one of you did that? Did what? Innocently asked Nobunaga. You must be imagining things, dismissed Phaeton. Perhaps you should rest, commented Krallo. These guys aren't so bad after all. For human scum. Gon and Killua. And this is 99, exclaimed Gon as he placed the card in his binder. What a time. It took them months to beat the game, but at long last Killua and Gon were about to do exactly that. They had come a long way from when they first entered the game, and admittedly a lot of their progress was due to Bisky. Despite being disguised as a dainty blonde girl, she had proven to be one monster of a teacher. Killua and Gon had made leaps and bounds of progress not only in their nin abilities, but in their chakra techniques. Both boys were able to water walk while fighting. The next step to their chakra journey would be elemental ninjutsus, and the boys decided to wait until they met up with Miwa again before trying that out. Killua had memorized all of the Fuinjutsu symbols and was eager to try to make his own storage scrolls. Because he promised Miwa he wouldn't make any without her supervision, he was extra anxious to see her again. And, they missed her. With 99 out of 100 of the cards collected, they were only one away from beating the game and reuniting with their dear friend. Ding ding! This announcement is for all players. A player has collected 99 restricted slot cards. 10 minutes from now, in honor of this event, there will be a quiz contest for all Greed Island players. There will be 100 total questions dealing with restricted slot cards. The player who has the most correct answers will receive number 0 Ruler's Blessing as a prize. Please wait with your binders open. Gon let out a small hum. Questions about restricted slot cards, huh? I get it. The questions are probably designed so that players who mainly stole cards can't answer them. Killua cut himself off as he sensed oncoming traffic. The party was quickly surrounded by several more groups of players who had teleported to their location. The first party to land held up their hands in a gesture of surrender. Don't worry. We aren't here to get in your way. In fact, you could say we're here to help. Gon frowned. Help? Yeah. If we get the top score on the quiz and win the card, we want to sell it to you for 2.5 billion. That's only 5% of your reward. It's a reasonable price, yeah? Oh, they haven't heard about Battera, realized Killua. Battera had contracted hundreds of players to enter the game and retrieve an item to save his lover. Unfortunately, his lover passed away, and so did Battera. There would be no prize money available anymore. Sucked for them, Killua smirked. Sure, if you get the top score. Killua turned away from the party to talk to Bisky and Gon. Everyone else is here for the chance to sell us the final card, too? With the game ending, they're all hoping to share in the reward, observed Bisky. It looks like they're going to take the quiz in teams. What should we do? We should do it ourselves, declared Gon. Killua grinned. Yeah. Whoever scores lower gets penalized. I'm in, cheered Gon. I win, you never say eat me again, said Killua. Boo. Fine. If I win, you say it to Miwa, said Gon with an oddly mischievous grin. Prepare to lose, agreed Killua, holding out his hand. Gon accepted the challenge. Miwa. It took months of hard work, but Miwa finally felt like she could say her work was, temporarily, complete at Meteor City, now named Soleil. The city had been up and completely functional for over a week by that point, and only moments ago did Miwa receive a letter of recognition from the V6. The Empire of the Sun was officially a country. Meteor City was gone forever. She knew in the coming weeks more and more countries would be forced to recognize the Empire of the Sun's status, and in doing so all of her citizens would no longer be nobodies. They were not discarded, unwanted, or to be looked down upon. They were proud members of her city. Her city. Her country. What an odd turn of events. Miwa's office had undergone a transformation. Kikyo had stopped by not long after Kaluto's first visit and decided to decorate for Miwa. The Zoldyck matriarch picked up quickly on the things that interested Miwa, what was cute to her, and adapted the designs accordingly. The result was the office was a tasteful fusion of cute girlish things with professional sophistication. Why, her office even had pointlessly expensive artwork that hung on the walls. The government was designed mostly by Kaluto, but Kaluto had hired a team of undergraduates in political science to refine and assist him. There were many departments set up in the town hall: finance, legislation, security, education, infrastructure, medical, foreign affairs, and so many nice people who joined. Nearly all the members were locals, but there were some people brought in from other countries. Shellnark delightfully headed up security, which was further divided into cyber, military, and city. Shellnark hadn't exaggerated in the slightest bit when he said he had a talent for computers. He typed faster than anyone Miwa had ever witnessed. Nobunaga headed up the city's main security force, taking pleasure in training recruits. Phaeton and Krallo had refused official positions, but both Phantom Troop members were always nearby. In fact, when not training in chakra, Krallo spent the majority of his time lounging on the couch in Miwa's office. Phaeton always hovered in the shadows. He disliked being called out, and would typically sit on the rooftop above Miwa's office, or hang upside down on the balcony to practice his chakra management. Miwa proudly held up the letter of recognition. He. What's that? Asked Shelnurk. She had been enjoying afternoon brunch with the troop members in the city. There was a plate of scones and sweet drinks on the coffee table. Krallo, Shelnurk, and Nobunaga were relaxing on the couches. Phaeton, ever a dour, relaxed against a wall with his arms crossed over his chest. Miwa handed the letter over to Shelnurk. The blonde whistled appreciatively before passing it off to Nobunaga. Congrats, praised Shelnurk. This calls for celebration. Celebration how? Asked Miwa. Why not play a game? Miwa's face scrunched up. I don't like video games. What? Shelnurk was appalled. What kind of child doesn't like video games? I suck at them. You just haven't found the right genre, said Shelnurk. It'd be such a waste if you couldn't enjoy them. I'll see if I can find something you'd like. Miwa highly doubted such a game would exist. She dubiously responded, good luck finding a cute game. Some kind of celebration should be good though, said Nobunaga. Shame you're too young to drink. Miwa shrugged. Even if she wasn't, alcohol was a type of poison, so she couldn't get drunk anyway. How about a bullshit tournament? Suggested Shelnurk with a bright smile. Itching to reclaim your title? Mocked Phaeton. You won't win this time, said Shelnurk. Phaeton stepped closer, a dark gleam of amusement in his eyes. Care to place your money where your mouth is? Always. Miwa clapped excitedly. Oh yay! This sounds like fun. I'll add a rule to this game, said Krallo, pulling out a deck of cards. No strip clause. Ah, yeah, good idea. Strip clause? Miwa tilted her head. Don't worry about it, kiddo, chuckled Nobunaga. It's just a rule to substitute clothes for money when you're behind, explained Shelnurk, clearing the tray of food off the table. No one wants to see Phaeton's pasty ass. Shelnurk bent forward as a knife flew over his head. So predictable, he clicked his tongue. Gon and Killua. Quiz is over. I will now announce the player with the top score. With a score of 87 out of 100, our top scoring player is Gon. Woo woo. That means Killua gets penalized. Killua bit his bottom lip. There was a coup in the sky. The three looked up to find an owl descending upon them with an envelope. The owl dropped the envelope into Gon's hands. Inside it was the final card, along with a letter of invitation. It was time for Gon to receive his final prize and see the ending of the game. Miwa. The game of bullshit lasted well into the night. Miwa lost terribly. She apparently lacked a poker face, and ended up having to bet all of her explosive tags and unused storage scrolls to compensate. Nobunaga wasn't much better. The samurai was easily provoked. Krallo and Phaeton were masters at keeping a stoic face, but Shelnurk was in a league of his own when it came to mimicking false expressions. Even Miwa was fooled by his crocodile tears, and she literally saw him lie. Krallo was still the victor. He cheated. He had to have cheated. Miwa started counting the cards after she lost, but she had no idea how he cheated. Krallo claimed the prizes for his own, giving his comrades a small amused smile as they grumbled over their loss. Well played. Shoulda known better than to go against the boss, sighed Shelnurk. One day I'll figure you out. And one day hell will freeze over, snarked Phaeton. Shelnurk politely flipped Phaeton off. Miwa yawned. Bedtime for the kiddo, said Nobunaga. Come on, I'll tuck you in. Miwa beamed. She loved being tucked in. Nobunaga had started doing it after their training sessions had gone on well past midnight. Sometimes Shelnurk would do it though. And the couple of times Miwa had stayed at the Zoldyck mansion, Kikyo would. There was something so warm and fuzzy about being tucked in. She loved it. She wanted to tuck Gon and Killua in the next time they went to bed together. She wanted to share that loving sensation with her dearest friends. What a great day, thought Miwa. I can't wait to share this with Gon and Killua. I hope they finish that game soon. Gon and Killua. Killua whistled appreciatively. Gon, Bisky, and Killua had celebrated the ending of the game in the final city. As Gon was the only one to have 100 cards in his binder, Gon was the only one able to receive a grand prize. In Gon's room at the palace, he revealed the grand prize: the ability to take 3 cards out of the game. Gon further explained the prize to Killua and Bisky. Once I've chosen the 3 cards, I'm supposed to go to the port. Bisky asked, did they tell you about your father? But they don't know where he is right now. Shame, sighed Bisky. Killua shrugged. Well, that's what the starting message said. It's kind of expected by this point, laughed Gon. Bisky smiled. So, what will you do for the 3 cards? How about we each pick one, suggested Killua. Bisky wasted no time in pulling out the card she wanted. Then I want Blue Planet. Bisky lovingly nuzzled the card of the dazzling gem. This is still the best one. I can't wait to see the real thing. Killua frowned. I'm still thinking. Have you decided, Gon? Which one? This one, said Gon, pointing to one of the cards. Bisky's face scrunched up. Why that one? Killua, however, instantly understood. Oh. I get it. Not bad, Gon. Miwa. Come morning, Miwa headed over to the Zoldyck mansion for breakfast. She had sent a picture of the letter to Kikyo yesterday, and the matriarch exuded joy in her response. She told Miwa to come by and receive a gift. Miwa appeared at the gazebo where the 3 always ate. The Zoldyck mansion was a beautiful place, but the garden surrounding the gazebo was Miwa's favorite spot. She thought Kikyo looked so elegant sipping tea underneath it. She and Kaluto looked like proper royalty. To Miwa's delighted surprise, Kaluto and Kikyo were already at the table. Miwa flung herself forward, hugging the one nearest to her, which happened to be Kaluto. Kaluto, like Killua, got very flustered when receiving physical affection. Kikyo was not the type of person to give out physical affection. She had not received it growing up, and did not know how to properly hand it out. Even Kikyo got stiff when Miwa hugged her, but the mother didn't push her away. Kaluto floundered for a moment until he hesitantly hugged her back. Once the last bit of food was devoured, Goto cleared away the plates. Now come here, beckoned Kikyo. Miwa obediently got up from her seat to step forward to Kikyo. Good girl. Are you ready for your gift? It's a makeover, squealed Kikyo. Kaluto created a brand new outfit for you. We'll have a proper spa day. Take care of your skin, do something for your hair, a brand new look for you. Miwa's cheeks turned pink. She remembered the first time she had a spa day was in York New. It was a pleasant experience. She hadn't had much of a chance to tend to herself since starting her Meteor City project. She had been dealing with literal trash for months, then a lot of physical labor, then training. She hadn't done anything out of the bare necessities. By consequence, her hands were calloused, her hair had plenty of split ends, and the clothes Killua had so kindly given to her were nearly shredded beyond use. She had been meaning to get more clothes for herself, she just hadn't set aside the time to do so. But to think that Kikyo and Kaluto had prepared all that for her. She was touched. Miwa smiled as warmly as she could. Thank you so much. You haven't even seen it, teased Kikyo. But you both. Miwa gestured helplessly. You've been so kind to me. I'm so happy to have so many wonderful friends. Thank you, sweet child, cooed Kikyo, cupping her face in her hands. This is what mothers do. We take care of our children. For some reason, Miwa's eyes started to burn. Gon and Killua. Well, first things first, said Gon. We gotta call Miwa, said Killua, already pulling out his phone. Then we'll go see Jing, concluded Gon with a big grin. The 2 boys had left the game with Bisky. Their mentor for the past months bade them goodbye, leaving the 2 friends a moment to finally contact their favorite pigtailed girl. Killua made the phone call, anxiously shifting his weight as Gon bounced on the back of his heels in excitement. Ring, ring, ring. On the 3rd ring there was a flash of golden light. Killua and Gon felt a tingling sensation on the small of their back from where the Hiraishin marks had been placed. As soon as the light died down, they found themselves staring at a teary-eyed Miwa. She, like Gon and Killua, had undergone her own transformation. Although hers looked a lot more radical than the boys' subtle growth and strength. Killua's old hoodie had been replaced by a type of Furisode kimono shirt that reminded Killua an awful lot of his brother, Kaluto. It looked exactly like something Kaluto would design, actually. It was made up of gold and black silk. She had black shorts and black knee-high boots. The design on the Furisode reminded the boys of the sun. I missed you guys so much," Miwa blurted out, rushing forward and into their arms. The three friends embraced tightly. "You look nice," Killua managed, patting her back. "You look like a sun princess," praised Gon, happily hugging her. "I missed you." Miwa's eyes burned as she pulled back. Then she decided she did miss them that much and proceeded to hug Killua again. Killua let out a small chuckle as he wrapped his arms around her and patted the back of her head. Miwa nuzzled into the crook of his neck, breathing in his familiar scent and relishing how utterly comforting he was. She tilted her head back to nuzzle on his nose like she had seen a lot of animals do. His cheeks turned bright red at that, then kissed the tip of his nose. Killua went stiff as a board, spluttering something as Miwa turned away and jumped into Gon's arms. Gon laughed, swinging her around as they hugged. He happily nuzzled Miwa's nose, and after Miwa kissed his nose, he kissed hers. "Ah, I love nose kisses," said a cheerful Gon. "Thank you, Miwa. I think I love nose kisses, too," chirped Miwa. "And nuzzles. Nuzzles are great," he agreed, nuzzling her again. "How can you two do that without getting so embarrassed?" asked Killua as he stared at them, shoving his hands in his pockets. "I dunno," they said. "Although you're always supposed to return nose kisses," said Gon. "Go on." He nudged Miwa closer to Killua. Killua's ears were as red as Kurama's eyes. Miwa tilted her head cutely as she watched him, wondering if Killua would return her nose kisses and nuzzles. After a minute of debilitation, Killua leaned forward and gently kissed the tip of Miwa's nose. "Yay!" cheered Miwa. "Hooray!" agreed Gon, his grin oddly smug. "Shut up," said Killua. "I really missed you both so much," said Miwa. Gon slung an arm around her shoulder. "We missed you, too. Where'd you get the new clothes?" asked Killua. "Your brother." "What? Wow, he has good taste," said Gon. "I'm sorry. Did I hear you right? From my brother?" Killua pressed. "Yeah, my brother. You talked to my family? Aha. What?" "So," said Miwa with a chirp in her tone. "Wanna see my empire?" Killua gaped. "Wah. Heck yeah," cheered Gon. Bonus TTEU, in which Miwa, Killua, and Gon have traveled back to this point in time with all the knowledge and skills they possess at the end of the series. Also known as a random collection of mini scenes from the arc that occurred to me while re-watching it and made me giggle, so I thought I'd share. This place is amazing," cheered Miwa, examining the first town with a twinkle in her eyes. "I kind of wish I had tagged along with you guys the first time around." Gon grinned. "It would have been fun to see Bisky train you. I wonder how differently my inabilities would have formed," pondered Miwa. He. "Where do you guys want to start first?" "Let's do the tournament here, then go monster hunting," suggested Gon. "Monster hunting? There's some fluffy monsters," added Killua, who smiled kindly at her. Miwa gave them a thumbs up. "Heck yeah. You guys know exactly what I like." "I'd hope so by now," admonished Gon. "There's a magical city you might like, too." "Oh wow. And a city of low." Gon paused. "Actually, never mind, we should avoid that city." "Which city?" asked Miwa. Killua's eyes narrowed. "WHO. Yeah, we should definitely avoid that city." "Which city?" repeated Miwa. "City of AI," explained Gon. "How come?" "It's, Gon looked over at Killua with a panicked expression. "Filled with slime. And stinks." "Very gross," lied Killua. "Oh. Yeah, let's avoid that." A month later into the game. "It says to collect more cards we need to go to the city of AI, fretted Miwa. "Ah. I really wanted to avoid the stinky place." "We'll go for you," said Killua quickly. "Yeah, you don't need to step a foot in there," Gon hurriedly added. "Guys. I can't do that to you." "We'll suffer together," said Miwa with a big smile on her face. Killua placed a hand on her shoulder. No. No need for that." "Really? You can stay here." Gon placed a hand on her opposite shoulder. Sit back and enjoy some ice cream. We'll be right back. Miwa peered at me. You guys aren't normally so nice about my sensitivity. You haven't teased me at all for being delicate or disliking gross stuff. You know what they say. With age comes maturity, wisely said Gon. Gon, you laughed at a butt joke for like an hour yesterday. Killua cleared his throat. We should really get going now. Sit tight, Miwa. We'll be right back. A company, on City of AI. Miwa's eyes narrowed into suspicious slits as Killua and Gon teleported to the City of AI. You know, I have a very sneaky suspicion about those two. Reminds me of the surprise after the wedding night. Oh, God, you don't think. I doubt it'll be something that catastrophic. Only one way to find out though. Right you are. Miwa teleported near the City of AI, then hurriedly entered inside. To her surprise, the City of AI was not at all gross. The only smell emanating from it was that of flowers. There was no slime anywhere to be seen. In fact, it was an adorable city with a lot of pink and cute accents. All of the NPCs were attractive and sparkly, even. Miwa took one step inside and an incredibly handsome young man approached her. Ah! My eyes. Said Miwa, wondering if she was about to receive a quest. Forgive me. I was momentarily blinded by your beauty, said the man with a smile that would make most women swoon. Please, won't you let me paint you? Miwa stared blankly at the man. Paint me? Like a quest? Probably? Sure, she said. The man's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Ah, my goddess, you bless me. Away, to my studio. The man held out his hand. Miwa carefully placed her inside and he kissed the back of her hand. Gently, he started to guide her off the main street, but as they rounded the corner. Ouch! Another boy crashed into Miwa. Since Miwa was unprepared, she ended up falling down, too. Watch where you're going, scolded the boy who crashed into her. Miwa noticed he was pretty gosh darn cute too. In fact, he was so cute that Miwa was tempted to update her cute list. It had been a few years since she'd done that. Ah, my goddess, are you hurt? Fretted the artist. I'm fine, said Miwa, getting up and brushing the dirt off her clothes. And you should watch where you're going. Cute or not, you're the one that ran into me. The rude boy blushed. I'm not cute. Why you idiot? Oh my. Oh Sage, no. I'm not doing this again. I am not sitting through this flirting bullshit again. I'm disconnecting, bye. How dare you call such a beauty an idiot, immediately defended the artist. She's not beautiful. As she's hideous. Idiot, what is happening? Miwa wondered in disbelief as the two NPCs proceeded to fight over her. It didn't last long, however, because 2 feet landed on either of the NPC's cheeks. They were sent hurtling away. It was a one-hat not out. Killua and Gon hopped off the now unconscious NPCs. Hi, said Miwa with a raised eyebrow. What was that for? Reflex, they answered. What the heck is this place? Asked Miwa, hurrying over to their sides. She grabbed each of their hands. Is everyone so pretty here? Killua's face screwed up like he bit into a rotten lemon. Pretty? They're not real. Miwa stuck out her tongue. You can think fictional people are pretty. You agree, right, Gon? Gon's face pinched up. I don't want to answer that. Why not? Because I want to say no, but if I do then I feel like you won't let me use you as a pillow anymore, admitted Gon. Why do you want to say no? We made a fan club for our favorite fictional characters. Miwa gasped, offended. You're my vice president. We make plushies on the first of every month together. Gon puffed out his cheeks. Those characters aren't taking you on dates. That's something only we can do. Dates? What dates? I was on a quest to be painted. Oh, painted? Killua repeated blandly. Painted? He said I was a goddess, said Miwa with a shrug. Killua's head whipped around to glower dark at the unconscious NPCs. Let's just grab what we need and leave, weakly said Gon. Miwa, don't let go of our hands, okay? It'll be a problem if Killua destroys the city. Okay, Miwa sighed. Gon squeezed her hand. I'll help you make another plushie afterward. Miwa beamed. As long as it's not another stupid body pillow, muttered Killua. Gon and Miwa giggled at that memory. After beating the game, each of them collecting 100 cards each by tying in first place on the quiz. So now we go to the castle to get a prize? Asked Miwa, bouncing up and down in excitement. She had a lot of fun at Greed Island. Killua and Gon speed ran to get most of the cards, letting Miwa take her time to figure out a lot of the puzzles herself. They still guided her, though, and waited until she had the same amount of cards as them before they challenged the final boss for the 99th card. Yep. Let's go. The trio entered a castle and were greeted by a man who, like Bisky, kept a childlike youthful appearance. He had big grin eyes, freckles, and soft blonde curls. He instantly reminded Miwa of a character from an Otome game she played with Gon and Kaluto. Yua, gasped Miwa. He's so cute. Gon, you forgot to mention him, observed Killua. Gon weakly chuckled, suddenly having an impending sense of doom. He's not that cute, it's Fi. I'm officially updating my cute list, declared Miwa, stepping forward and sniffing the confused man. Yep. He smells nice. I'm sorry, whispered Gon. He accepted the obligatory smack on the back of the head from Killua. It was only fair. At least it's not a new Otome game release, thought Gon. The day Shelnark introduced those to Miwa was a dark day indeed. Chapter 28, Lammergeier I. So, you own a country now? Gon summarized as he nibbled on the scones in Miwa's office. Exactly how often did you visit my family? Asked Killua. Yes, answered Miwa. That's so cool. What's it like? I dunno. I don't really do anything anymore, said Miwa with a shrug. I mean, I stamp things? That didn't really answer my question, said Killua. What kind of things? Asked Gon. Miwa gestured to the stack of paperwork on her desk. I dunno. Krallo puts it on my desk and tells me to stamp it. I stamp it. And if I'm not here and it needs stamped, he stamps it. Miwa, said Killua. Yes? Did my family do anything to you? He hesitantly asked. They were very nice, Miwa explained with a smile. Your mama was very helpful. And look at what Kaluto made me. Miwa did a little twirl to show off her outfit. It was silky smooth. It glistened when the sun hit it just right. They had even used silk specially woven with Nen so it wouldn't be immediately destroyed if she used Kurama's chakra. She loved it. Killua sighed. As long as you're okay, I guess. So, tell me all about what happened. Okay. Miwa had a few things to take care of before she could leave with Gon and Killua. She first had to let Krallo and the others know. Krallo already had a hand in managing the state affairs, although only she and the troop members knew that, and he decided to continue to do so for a while longer. Are you sure? Miwa asked with concern. Krallo had denied an official position. He'd be operating from the shadows, giving Miwa the credit. Exceedingly so. Okay, she wasn't about to say no to that. She trusted Krallo, and if he turned out to betray her, well. Kurama told her exactly how to handle that situation. Nobunaga and Shelnark wished her well on her journey, both promising to have mastered the basics in chakra by the time they met up again. Phaeton, who was learning the shadow clone technique, sneered at her and said, "Finally, you're leaving." "I'll miss you too," said Miwa without missing a beat. He really did remind her so much of her dear Kurama. Although not as petty. With her affairs sorted out, she returned to Gon and Killua, and the three friends finally set out on their next adventure. They activated the teleportation spell Gon had acquired as his prize for beating the game, using Jing as their target to teleport to, or at least, who they thought was Jing. Sakura petals blew through the breeze, one of them landing on Miwa's nose. She wiped away at it, glancing around the foggy area. They had been transported somewhere very far. She couldn't sense any Haration marks nearby, so even her clones hadn't reached so far away. They were far out from civilization, judging by how crisp and clean the air smelled. There was a heavy fog in the area, but nothing too debilitating. In front of them was a large cherry blossom tree, petals falling away from it with each breeze. Underneath the tree sat a man with his back turned toward them. He was fishing into the lake that surrounded them. Miwa thought it odd that the man's energy core was so different from Gon's. Gon was a deep pond. Clean, pure, and innocent at the top but dark and consuming underneath. The man's core reminded Miwa more of a field. Wide, open, and oddly lonely. "Ji Jing," whispered Gon as he took a step forward. The man noticed them. He dropped his fishing pole, and before it even hit the ground, he had smacked all three of them away. Miwa landed beside Killua, surprised Gon's father had done that. He hadn't hit them hard, nor did she even sense malice in his chakra. Her eyes were wide, and she hesitated in what to do next. She didn't think it would be a good idea to attack Gon's father, but... The man raised his right hand and a small clown-like figure appeared. In a squeaky voice it said, "I got a slot machine in my mouth. It goes from 1 to 9. Each number summons a different weapon. This is my crazy slots. Give me something good. GRRRRRRRRR 4. Something long and black pushed itself out of the clown's mouth. "Shit, bad luck," muttered the man as he accepted the weird thing. "What is that?" thought Miwa, tilting her head. Wait, did he say weapon? Killua had already gotten up, dashing to Gon and shoving him out of the way as a bunch of small pellets shot themselves out of the weapon. "Oh. That's a gun." Miwa realized, standing up. She had seen a few of them before, but they were much smaller than the one the man had. The man was shooting at where Gon once was, but he did not follow where Killua had tackled Gon out of the way. It looked like Gon hadn't been his intended target, rather her friend was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. That would explain his lack of malice toward them. The man lowered the gun, approaching the trio. He pulled off his blue cloak and asked, "Are you hurt?" "Ha!" Gon's face fell upon seeing the man. He was a tall, spindly man, with long white hair and a sharp face. There was tiredness in his eyes that could only be accumulated from years of lack of sleep, or years of persistent worry. Miwa was surprised to see how kind he looked. Maybe she had gotten too used to Krala's poker face, Phaeton sneers, Kikyo's mania, Kaluto need to hide, and Shellnerk's toxic smile. Nobunaga could be kind, but that kindness was reserved for children, and there was always a hidden level of cruel callousness. The man before them lacked any type of hidden darkness. He was an open field, gentle, nurturing, and oddly lonely. What an odd core. What do you mean? I didn't know any adult could have such a purity to them, thought Miwa, wondering if the man was secretly a child. Purity didn't seem like the correct word, but she had no other way to describe his core's natural sincerity. She only saw that kind of unconditional kindness in children. Gon murmured, "That's not Jing." Killua's eyes widened at Gon's disappointed expression. He snapped his head around to glare at the man. "Hey, explain yourself. First you push us down, then you fire at us. Enough fooling around." "Fooling around?" I was dead serious. If I hadn't opened fire, you would have been attacked. By what? "The ant you shot," sneered Killua, standing up. "Ant?" Miwa got up, brushing the dirt off her shorts and kimono as she looked around Killua's feet. Upon closer inspection she could see the remains of some type of ant-like creature that oozed blue blood. Although... "Why does it, Kurama? Are you feeling this?" I don't understand." It was faint, extremely faint, but Miwa felt the tiniest echo of something that reminded her of Kurama. Why would ants feel similar to Kurama? It was not chakra, nor nen. Or maybe it was? She couldn't tell because it was so faint. Kurama was a creature composed only of a type of chakra. It was not chakra that originated from nature, but from somewhere out of their world. And by consequence, he was unique. He and all the other Bijus were entirely unique. The fact that a bug had even the faintest resemblance to Kurama was puzzling. Could another Biju have made them? I do not know. Miwa was prevented from further conversing with Kurama when she heard Killua let out a sharp ow. She tensed up, and to her surprise the head of one of those ants had latched onto Killua's leg. Miwa hadn't, even though in her reaction, she instantly dashed to his side, her fingers laced with Kurama's chakra. If it was a creature similar to Kurama, removing it would require extra care. She swiped the head off Killua's leg, burning it to ash in her hands. The man had also moved to Killua, but Miwa had been faster. "Fool," he scolded. He grabbed Miwa's hand, forcing her palm open to reveal the ashes of the ant. You shouldn't have grabbed that with your bare hands. That was no ordinary ant. It's a chimera ant. Chimera ant, echoed Killua. Satisfied that she hadn't been bitten by the ant, he dropped her hand and explained, an aggressive, carnivorous insect, currently under a Class 1 quarantine. From time to time, they even attack humans. You were standing right in front of their nest. Had I not fired, a chimera ant army would have consumed you by now. Chimera ant? Have we heard of that before? No. At least, I don't think so. Do you have your memories back? I do. Oh, then. Here, said the man. He had pulled out a small jug to hold out to Killua. Apply this, it's antibiotic. Killua quietly accepted it. If that's it, you should leave, said the man, turning away. Because of this interruption, I'll need to start over. But the nest was destroyed. Damn, forced to take another life. Gon loudly exclaimed, his eyes widening. Are you maybe the one who saved me from back then? Back then, the man asked. Gon sat forward. On Whale Island, after I stumbled into the territory of a foxbear with its cub. Foxbear? Miwa thought, instantly picturing what had to be one of the cutest creatures to have ever existed, ever. Whale Island, the man turned back around, peering at Gon. That time, too, you had to kill in order to protect me, Gon went on. The man smiled. Oh, I remember now. I never expected to run into you again here. You've grown, Gon. How do you know my name? I heard it from your dad, Jing. Old man, you know Jing? Asked Gon. Old? The man grimaced. Yeah, my name is Kite. Jing was my master. With that revelation, Gon's entire face lit up like the dawn. Then his stomach loudly growled because apparently the tea and scones from earlier weren't enough. The four decided to eat. Killua and Miwa quickly caught several fish from the lake, Killua proudly showing off his water walking, which Miwa praised him for, while Kite and Gon prepared a fire. As the fish cooked over the fire, the four of them sat around and talked. Kite, as it would turn out, had been a student of Gon's father. Jing had trained Kite to use his nin, and even prepared him for the hunter exam. Kite was keen to listen to their story, how they became hunters, and what happened in Greed Island. Gon was disappointed that the teleport didn't take him to Jing as expected, but it was apparent to everyone that Jing had planned for Gon and Kite to meet somehow. The four companions chatted all night long, Gon constantly asking questions about Jing, and Kite in turn asking questions about Gon. When the sun had arisen, Gon transitioned his questions away from Jing, more curious about Kite now. What kind of work do you do? Asked Gon. Biological surveying. I focus on discovering and researching new species. Oh, have you heard of the Camp Tiger? Camp Tiger? Kite pulled out a laptop from his backpack, opening it up and typing something inside. He said, they can use fire. They use branches that have been ignited by lightning as live kindle. Other than certain magical beasts that walk on two legs, they're the first of their kind, animals that eat their meat cooked, not raw. Kite handed the laptop over to show a video of two tigers with long horns on their heads. They had pierced animals on their horns and they hovered their prey over fire, cooking it. Killua brightened. Wow, they're actually cooking it. They really are using fire, exclaimed Gon. What else do you have videos on? Oh yeah, you said the thing that attacked us was a chimera ant? Yes, a chimera ant. Under a Class 1 quarantine. Normally, no one would be allowed near such a dangerous insect, said Kite. Did you discover them? Asked Gon. No, I specialize in larger creatures, denied Kite. But currently, I am investigating these insects. Something has been bothering me. Unfortunately, it appears that now I'll have to move to a different location. I must make a call, but I'm not getting any reception here. A call? Gon inquired, closing the laptop. I'm working with others, said Kite. 7 of us are working as a team. I guess I must wait for their arrival. Once they're here, I'll introduce you. They're amateurs, but they're still skilled hunters. Miwa hesitantly began, about the ants, where do they come afar? Oh. Kite turned around. Miwa fell silent as she realized a group was approaching them. Speak of the devil. A group of 4 humans quickly approached their camp. There were 2 women and 2 men, although one of the women dressed androgynous, so she wasn't confident if the woman wanted to be called a woman. Biologically female, but that didn't always mean they wanted to be called a girl. As Kaluto had steadfastly proven, boys could like cute things just as much as girls. The women up front with long, dark pink curly hair asked, "Kite, who are these kids?" Kite gestured to the children. "My friends. They dropped by a visit on their travels." The woman said, "Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you all the way out here. I'm Spinner Clow. Call me Spin." Spin held out her hand as she blew a bubble with her chewing gum. Gon was the first to accept it. He said, "I'm Gon Freaks." "Nice to meet you, Spin." The woman's gum popped. "Freaks, hey, are you?" "Yes, he's Jing's son." "No way," said 2 of the people behind Spin. "And you?" excitedly asked the third one, pointing to Miwa and Killua. "Are you too?" "No, not us," said Killua. "My name is Killua Zoldyck." The group cringed, and the man who had been excitingly pointing looked downright terrified. "Z Zoldsick," the androgynous woman hesitantly asked. "Forgive me, but are you part of that famous assassin family?" "This is my fiancé," said Killua, gesturing to Miwa. Gon gasped. "You've accepted it." "Hi," said Miwa, waving her hand. "I have a higher kill count than Killua now." Kite's colleagues were giving them nervous looks. "Show off," chuckled Killua while Gon reached over and patted the top of her head. "I'm happy for you," praised Gon. Miwa preened, leaning into Gon's touch. Gasped Gon as a tail popped up behind her. "Fluffy," she said. "You like it?" She offered it to her friends. Both friends patted her hinged tail. She had been predicting summoning it whenever she was happy to show her friends. She wished they would join her in loving fluffiness, and what better way to do that than to pet a fluffy tail? Kite cleared his throat. "Additionally, the 3 of them are pro hunters. So you should show them some respect." "Wow," they said. Kite's colleagues took seats around the dying campfire, introducing themselves. The largest man with a bear-like face was named Monta Uras, but he went by Mon. The overly excited man with the afro was named Stick Dinner. The androgynous woman introduced herself as Banana Cavero. She apparently had a very cute fluffy white puppy in her backpack that was all too happy to introduce himself to everyone. There were 2 others in Kite's group, but they had apparently headed to a different area. Mon pulled something out of his backpack. "Oh, and you were right, Kite." He held up a glass tube with a faint trace of that presence again. "This looks like the claw of the Chimera Ant Queen. We ran some computer analyses and the result was a 99% match." "Can I see?" asked Killua as he stood up. The large bear-like man held out the jar and Killua accepted it. "This is a claw?" "It's as big as a human finger." "Does that mean there are huge ants?" asked Gon. Kite said, "We don't know." Killua mused, "Maybe one mutated and grew really big?" "That's possible, though it may also belong to a completely different species. Regardless, we just don't know right now. That's why we're investigating." "It all started off with the wonkiest thing," said Spin. "A Kakin official named One," added Stick. "Kakin," echoed Gon curiously. "What's Kakin?" "Right here," answered Mon. "It's this wild land, in the middle of the Asian continent." Banana added, "We had just completed a biological survey they had requested when they brought in something completely odd." The group explained the massive insect-like arm they had found, citing its odd traits. They had been allowed to take a few samples. While the group would research what they had, Kite went forward with his own investigation. Although now they were united and confirmed that the large arm belonged to a chimera ant. It was time to do further investigation. "Can we tag along?" asked Gon. "Sure," said Kite. "Glad to have you," said Mon. "Having 3 pro hunters with us is reassuring," added Spin. "On top of which one is Jing's son, and the other 2 are part of the Zoldyck family," chuckled Banana. "Also, here's a scene I forgot to include earlier in the previous arc, smiley face." "Haration, is it possible to teach that to us?" asked Krallo. "My teleportation? I mean, technically yes, but I won't." "Why not?" "Gotta either marry me or adopt me, because these techniques are family exclusive," said Miwa stubbornly. Krallo stared at her for several seconds. "Might I see your hunter and ID card again?" "Ha? Oh, sure." Miwa handed it over to him. Would you mind dropping me off at the next city over tomorrow, then picking me back up? Krallo politely asked. Sure. When Miwa came to pick him up the next day, he handed her back her hunter and ID card. He was holding up a piece of paper that Miwa couldn't read because the font was all curly and tiny. She also noticed he had purchased a frame, or stole a frame. Whatever. Said Miwa as she tried to read the paper. I'm sorry, I can't read that very well. These are adoption papers. I have adopted you, Krallo informed her. Wah. Let us return home, daughter. Wah, okay. You will show me the Haration now, he asked. Yes. Krallo smiled and patted the top of her head. Good daughter. Are Killua and Krallo that clever, or am I that stupid? Both. OE. Chapter 29, Lammergeier 2. Before the group headed out, Miwa called Kite away. Miwa hesitantly tugged on Kite's shirt. Kite looked down at her. Yes? Do you think it'd be possible if I could hold the sample? Miwa asked. What do you want to do with it? Kite frowned. I'm kind of a sensor of sorts. There's a type of energy emanating from it, and I want to feel it, Miwa slowly explained. While she didn't feel Kite was a bad person, per se, she didn't feel comfortable explaining everything to him. Okay, said Kite, offering her a smile. Treat it carefully. Kite pulled out the small jar with the claw inside. Uncapping it, he poured the claw out and into Miwa's expecting hands. Oi, Kit. Can I get a closer look at it directly? I won't hurt it. You sure? Reasonably. Meh. As Kurama interacted with the whirl through his chakra, Miwa had to envelop a small portion of the ant arm in it. It said a lot about how careful Kurama was, because he was being so precious with it that his chakra didn't even start burning it. He only probed at it for a few seconds before he pulled back, not wanting to risk destroying it. This arm, this creature. It comes from someplace like me. What do you mean? It's not a chakra-based creature, but there is a certain type of energy inside it similar to my own. I would guess that it originates from an environment that exudes volatile energy. Curious. The only other comparison I could make would be an ant that lived near a biju all its life, but even that's not quite right, as it clearly cannot withstand my chakra for more than a few seconds. Interesting, very interesting. I wouldn't mind meeting more of such creatures. So, it's not from this world? I doubt it. Miwa felt a very odd kinship with the creature. She wondered if they had arrived here through similar means. Well, asked Kite as Miwa handed the claw back. Chimera ants aren't from this world, are they? Miwa ran her fingers through her hair. Kite smiled at her. Correct. They're from a place called the Dark Continent. Wow. Gotta check that place out then. Could be fun. There might be other biju there. Maybe. The thought of finding more creatures like Kurama filled Miwa with a simple joy. As soon as she, Gon, and Killua had a moment alone, she'd tell her friends what she had learned with Kurama. They had gathered in a rather cramped car. Stick Dinner drove, with Kite, Gon, and Killua up front. Kite sat in the passenger seat, and Gon and Killua were squashed in between. Miwa had to sit on their laps. Well, okay, she didn't have to. She could have easily ran alongside the car without breaking a sweat, but she missed them so much and wanted an easy excuse to cuddle. Gon was never going to say no to cuddles, and apparently Killua missed Miwa too because he also accepted the cuddles and head pats. The rest of the colleagues were in the back, and some of them definitely made some off faces at the children being cuddle buddies. They drove through a barren region, only sand and rocks in sight. Kite leaned against the window. It hasn't rained in this area for months. The weather is unusual this year. It's possible that this is affecting the wildlife in some way. So, the insect with the large leg could have been a mutation influenced by these conditions, theorized Spin. But why would it have grown larger, questions Banana. In order to survive, right, countered Mon. If it's bigger, it'd have a better chance of securing food. But that would mean it'd need more, as well, disagreed Banana. Being larger doesn't always aid survival. I believe this is related to the chimera ant's unique nature, not to the environment. Spin nodded. Yeah, that'd make sense. Because they reproduce in a way not found in any other organism. What do you mean? Asked Gon. They reproduce through a special process known as phagogenesis, said Kite. When a chimera ant queen eats other organisms, she is able to pass traits on from those organisms to the next generation. And she can also eat multiple species to pass on a mix of genes to her offspring. With each feeding, she lays 1 to 5 eggs. The first generation of births has no reproductive capability, so they become worker or soldier ants. They work in service to the queen and her eventual successors. Those successors are the king and queen of the next generation. The queen is thus always looking to consume the genes of strong organisms so she can pass them to offspring. She may consume any species she particularly likes to extinction. To extinction, gasped Gon. Spin said, yeah, her voracious appetite can drive her to consume her own weight many times over in a single day. That's why chimera ants are under a Class 1 quarantine. So, if she sets her eyes on you, you're finished? Killua frowned. Judging from the size of that claw, her length is at least 2 meters. That thing could devour a human in no time. Yes, you are correct, said Kite. The group had a small break to stretch their legs out in the car before heading out again. Miwa used that opportunity to fill Gon and Killua in on what she had learned. When she had finished explaining Kurama's story to her friends, they sat back in silence. I wonder if the ants are like that, Gon thought out loud. They just kind of arrived here, right? Must have been scary. If the ants evolve on what they eat and if they've already eaten humans, could they become like humans? Killua wondered. Gon cocked his head. You mean could they have emotions like humans? Ha! That sounds really interesting. I want to find out. Me, too, admitted Miwa. Who knows, Gon mused, the queen might have met someone like Kurama before. Miwa's eyes shined. Oh. Do you think that'd be possible? Only one way to find out. Gon had a sunny smile. Beat it to submission until it starts answering our questions? Killua smirked. Exactly, exclaimed Gon, causing Miwa to giggle. The next day, the group had arrived to meet the last of the colleagues, 2 small adults named Lin and Padungo. As it turned out, the arm had been originally found in that area. Lin and Padungo had questioned the locals, but the only lead that could be discovered was that it washed up on the beach. The group searched the area for any signs, but they couldn't find anything concrete. It had rained heavily since the arm was originally found, so they couldn't even track it from scents. The group checked into a local hotel to regroup and assess where to go next. According to Kite, the queen would move around until she found a place she liked and then she'd build a nest. From there, it wouldn't be much longer until she amassed an army. Using the internet, they examined the currents over the past 10 days to theorize a trajectory. It could have come from any of the Balsa Island, said Kite as he peered at the computer. Including the Mytene Union. Mytene Union, huh? Oh, where the NGL Autonomous Region is, commented Banana. Yes, as well as the East Gorto, murmured Kite. There's no getting information out of those 2 countries. Killua folded his arms over his chest. What's NGL? It's an acronym, standing for Neo Green Life, explained Banana. It's a country founded by people who wanted to live in nature, away from machine civilization, at its stick. Here, said Spin as she pulled up a map. Mytene Union was a long island comprised of 5 different countries: NGLA Autonomous Region, Republic of Rocario, Has Republic, Republic of West Gorto, and Republic of East Gorto. Spin tapped at the NGL. It was the furthest country to the west. It uses letters to communicate and its primary means of transportation is by horse. Anyone knowingly bringing technology into the country is subject to execution. In '87, a 3-man TV crew was caught trying to enter the country to get a store. One was executed and the other 2 remain in prison. Of its 2.17 million population, 99% belonged to the Neo Green Life Party, with the rest being support volunteers. If, Kite said slowly, the chimera ant washed ashore there, how would the NGL citizenry react? They probably wouldn't do anything. When a deadly epidemic spread throughout the area, they let nature run its course, refusing to admit international doctors. Even if they tried to contact the outside world, it would be too late by the time word arrived. If that arm belonged to the chimera ant queen, she may have already begun to build her nest. Then I guess we should confirm, said Miwa. Yes, agreed Kite. Spin? Already buying the tickets to the Mytene Union, she said, typing away at the computer. But to reach NGL, we'll have to take an airship to the neighboring Republic of Rocario, and travel by land from there. It ain't gonna be easy to get into a country of such nasty rumors, chuckled Stick. Killua cocked his head. Nasty rumors? Have you heard of D2? Yes, bemoaned Miwa. Ugh. I hate that thing. D2 was a narcotic that had been rampant in Meteor City, along with a lot of other drugs, but the D2 had been the most common one. Miwa's clones accidentally blew up a stash of it, and the powder was so powerful it made the clones pop. It was a dangerous drug that incited primal urges in anyone who took, and pumped them full of dopamine in the process. Anyone on D2 wouldn't think twice about their actions. Angry? Beat anyone into a pile of goo. Horny? Hole's a hole, willing or not. Hungry? Flesh is flesh, human or not. According to Krallo, D2 was the main drug responsible for the rampant increase in cannibals in Meteor City in recent years. Of course, there had always been cannibals, but with D2's release that number doubled. If Miwa ever got her hands on the asshole who made the stupid thing. Kite seemed briefly amused by Miwa's frustrations. He explained to Gon and Killua, it's an ingestible drug that's propagating rapidly throughout urban areas worldwide. It's derived from the Bila tree, native to the Mytene Union. They claim that over 80% of the world's Bila trees are located in NGL. So, the nasty rumors are saying that the drug is being manufactured in NGL? Killua concluded. Karama. I'm sensing. If you're sensing Biju bomb time, you would be correct. If that's where the drugs are, I think we should pay it special attention. Yes. It's not confirmed, said Kite. No one has been able to publicly prove it. When people try to get in to investigate, they're executed, Spin said with a shrug. Was all Miwa said in response to that. We'll need to head out in an hour, said Spin, tapping on the monitor. Got our tickets. Good. Take a breather, then we'll pack up and move out. We probably won't have good coverage at NGL, will we? Miwa realized. No, said Kite. Okay, be right back, she said, hopping out the window and jumping up onto the roof to make a quick phone call. It rang 3 times until someone picked up. Hello? Hi, said Miwa. Just checking in. Everything is fine, said Krallo. I almost have the Fuinjutsu alphabet memorized. Wow. I'll practice on explosive notes first, continued Krallo. Oh. I have some extra chakra ink prepared if you want to use that, said Miwa. It's in my desk. I saw. Miwa thought she could feel Krallo smile. Thank you. I wanted to give you a heads up, I'll be going to a place that probably won't have good cell service. The Mytene Union. Oh. You should avoid the NGL if you can. That's actually where we're going. Krallo fell silent. They have a massive drug trafficking ring there, he said slowly. I am aware. Are you going to clean them up like you did with the cannibals? Solid chance. One of the leaders, he said, collects maps. You want me to steal the maps while I'm there? Might as well. Okay, Miwa agreed. If there's an emergency, please split my Haration tag since I probably won't be getting any phone calls. Understood, he said. The cannibals haven't come back, right? There was a secret cult worshipping some type of tentacle monster, but Nobunaga and Phaeton cleared that out, said Krallo, amusement in his tone. I missed destroying a secret cult? Miwa gasped. Arg. That sounded so much fun. Please tell me it was boring and I didn't miss out on anything. There was a long pause. It was boring. Thank you for lying to me. The cult leader is still alive. Do you want us to keep her alive for you? Nah, hunt is over, and it's not fun to play with used up prey. Krallo made an acknowledging noise. Have fun at NGL. Think they'll have secret cults worshipping something weird? Miwa asked with hope in her voice. No. You could have lied to me. I could have. I chose not to. Goodbye, child. Goodbye, she sighed, hanging up. She had but one more important task to do before she was completely ready to disconnect. She teleported to Kurapika, a cup of hot cocoa in her hands. She had purchased the cocoa from the village while they were waiting for their airships. She requested whipped cream on top and a chocolate drizzle to make it extra gooey sweet. Kurapika did not immediately react to her presence. He sat in a dimly lit room, his gaze focused on a computer screen in front of him. Slowly, he turned his head to face Miwa. She held out the hot cup of cocoa. He quietly accepted it. "Doing okay?" she asked him. "Everything is progressing well," he answered. "What's this for?" "To warm you up," she said. I was afraid you'd get cold again." Miwa hadn't been able to visit Kurapika often because of how busy she was. The young man did not reach out to her either. Too focused on reclaiming the lost eyes of his clansmen, in addition to finding out more information about the flesh market so he and Miwa could destroy it. Miwa had given him a lot of Hiratian placement tags. He only had to slap one down on a hard surface, and it would mark the area for Miwa to teleport to. He had been strategically placing them in preparation for their eventual assault. Time in the underworld did not do his heart kindly. Kurapika was someone who ought to fight to defend, instead of fighting to avenge. He was a sweet soul, and being drenched in death and misery took a toll on him. Miwa was afraid he'd become too cold one day. That one day he'd be out of her reach just like. For a moment he blurred in her vision, overlapping with different faces. With her other hand, she pulled off his goggles and held them up to him. Her voice was cracking now. "They're broken. See, cracked. I can't see straight out of them, but I'm going to keep hold of them till I die, because they're precious. Even if they don't work alright anymore, they're still precious. They're still loved. I still believe in them." Her heart thumped loudly and painfully in her chest. Kurapika took a deep drink of the hot cocoa. He smiled at her. It was small, but still kind. "Thank you," he said. "I'm going to be out of contact for a while," she said, feeling her throat tighten all of a sudden. "Please tear a tag if you need me." "Understood," Kurapika responded. Miwa shifted her weight anxiously. "Kurapika? Yes?" She reached forward and hugged him. She hugged him as tight as she dared, terrified of what would happen when she let go. "Please stay warm." He patted her back. Chapter 30, Lammergeier 3. Warning: human and animal gore. We're in the Chimera Ant arc, proceed with caution from here on out, okay? Updating cause it's my birthday week, happy face. The journey out to NGL was long and dull. The boys shamelessly used Miwa as their pillow. That was completely fine because she used them as headrests as well. Sleeping made the long trip a lot more bearable. It had been a while since Miwa had been able to sleep for so long. Soleil had been a massive undertaking. Upon arriving at the NGL border, the group had to go through customs. They had to remove anything metallic, made of plastic, or other similar materials that could not naturally degrade. They even had to go through physical exams to make sure nothing was hidden in their rectums, because apparently that was a common way to sneak stuff in. Unfortunately, not all the members were able to enter the country. Glasses counted as bannable, as well as anyone who had implants, even dental fillings. Only Kite, Killua, Gon, Miwa, Stick, and Padunga were able to go inside the country to begin the hunt. As there weren't any cars allowed, the group had to rent horses, which was actually quite fun. Miwa had never ridden an animal before, so she had to sit in either Gon or Killua's lap while they controlled the animal. It was fun bouncing around. They rode for half a day until some wasps stopped them with a message. Kite read it, saying that it was an SOS, that someone had found the Chimera Ant nest. Kite ordered Padunga and Stick to return to the others, while he and the children would make haste to the SOS. He was fast, sprinting in the direction the message had come from. Not too fast, though, as the other hunters were able to keep up. For over an hour they ran, entering a dense forest. "I smell blood," said Miwa as soon as she caught a whiff of that metallic tang. "Lots of it. The freshest one, this way." Miwa veered sharply to the left. Kite and the others turned to follow her. Into the forest they went, rapidly passing by trees until Miwa found the source of the smell. It was a pool of blood, still warm and fresh, with shreds of clothing around it. There was enough blood soaking into the ground to tell Miwa that whoever had been there had not survived. "I think it's safe to say they have been eating humans," observed Miwa, staring at the pilta of blood and shredded clothes. "Are humans yummy?" Miwa wondered. For the past months, she had seen so many beings devour humans. Depends. Some can be tasty. She couldn't imagine it. Some humans smelled unreasonably foul, and none of them smelled good enough to eat. At best, They smelled like pleasant things like Gon and Killua, not food. But Kurama, cannibals, and now the ants certainly seemed to enjoy their taste. "This is a bullet casting," said Killua, picking something metal off the ground and examining it. Gon frowned. "Nothing mechanical is allowed here, right?" So, the underground rulers of NGL were manufacturing guns in addition to drugs. If the Chimera ants are using guns. I hate to say it, but it's possible that the NGL's underground rulers have already been fed to the queen. What will happen if Chimera ants are born with their genes? NGL and Chimera ants, the worst combination imaginable. This could create an unprecedented biohazard. Then, do you think they could talk? Asked Miwa. Talk? Kite echoed. Probably? The hunt continued. As the day wore on, they found few traces of the ants until they stumbled upon a desecrated village. The lingering gore had a sickeningly sweet smell that made Miwa want to gag. There was a particularly strong presence of the stench that led them to the outskirts of the village. As the sun began to set behind them, casting the sky in a reddish hue, they stumbled upon 3 horses that had been impaled rectum to mouth upon trees. Ouch! Miwa had impaled enough cannibals to know that was not an instant or easy death. If the impalement was slow, the horses would have survived the entire process and might have even lived an hour afterwards. They were dead now, but fresh enough they hadn't decomposed. Looks like some of them know how to have a good time. Miwa inwardly rolled her eyes at Kurama's sass. Gon made a sound. It's like a morning sacrifice. A what? Miwa blinked. A ritual practiced by birds called bullheaded strikes. They impale their prey on sharp objects, such as branches. Oi! The group turned around to find a humanoid creature stepping out of the forest. Its scent made Miwa's nose tingle because it was an odd combination of human, bird, rat, and something else she couldn't identify. It was tall, lean, and had long white feathers down its arms. It certainly looked like a combination of what it smelled like. What the? Trash, growled the creature as it lifted a hand to point at the impaled horses behind them. That's mine. It launched itself toward them, first aiming for Kite, but Kite moved away so it shoved Gon and Killua back. Miwa had reflexively jumped back, avoiding the attack. Gon clutched at his nose where he had been smacked and let out a small whine. Ow. Miwa's eyes narrowed. She lowered herself in preparation to leap upon the thing that hurt her friends. Gon, Killua, Miwa, you 3 must deal with him yourselves, said Kite. He stepped back and leaned against a tree. Kite gestured to the creature. That is a Chimera ant soldier. We will encounter many more like him. I won't be able to help you during combat. If you can't defeat it, you'll have to leave. In that case, Miwa go stand back with Kite, said Gon. Shoo, said Killua. But she should test herself, too, said Kite. She can kick our butts, the heck she should, snorted Gon. Yeah, it'd be over in a second if she joined, argued Killua. Go away, Miwa. Kite frowned, but didn't say anything as Miwa begrudgingly went to stand beside him. Eat me, she muttered reproachfully, which made Gon slip out a restrained giggle. Kite had a point, though, and Miwa was impressed he considered it. Like at Heaven's Arena, Gon and Killua had to fight strong opponents in order to grow. Babying them would only hurt their progress. That being said, throwing them into a needlessly dangerous situation should be avoided at all costs. If they couldn't handle encountering a soldier in a 2v1, they shouldn't be there. Gon and Killua's auras flared to life as they channeled their nen in preparation for combat. They have a lot of faith in you, Kite told Miwa. Wanna arm wrestle? No, thank you. I'll trust their judgment. Gon and Killua threw themselves at their opponent, and the ant batted them away. Killua leapt high into the air above the ant, lightning crackling around his right hand. Miwa's vision blurred. For only the briefest seconds, it was not Killua in the air, but another shinobi with silver hair and lightning crackling around his hands. Her heart clenched painfully, a shot of pain piercing her. Killua launched the lightning bolt at the ant, electrocuting it as Gon condensed his nen into his fist. Flames erupted around his hand, and Gon punched the ant hard in its stomach with his enhanced fist. The creature went flying into the air, only to be grabbed by another ant with wings that promptly flew away with it. Kite was satisfied with their performance, and the group continued on their hunt for the nest. As they journeyed, Kite explained a bit more about the Chimera ants, namely their hierarchy. The queen was at the top, followed by royal guards, then squadron leaders, then captains, then soldier ants. Once the queen gave birth to a king, the royal guards would leave to serve the king while the king went off to find a mate. Surprisingly sophisticated for bugs, but, well, the Komii Biju was also a bug and it had quite the talent for poetry. The group carried on into the forest, and as the sky grew dark, they stumbled upon a few mountains with dugout caverns. Gon asked, "Is this the Chimera ant nest?" "No. They don't make their nests in holes, they use mud and feces to build them." Kite stepped forward. "Let's go. You'll understand once we're inside." The quartet moved silently, entering the first cavern they found the entrance to. Niwa clutched at her nose. "Urk, you going to be okay?" asked Gon. "Yeah, just kind of nauseous," she mumbled. The cavework reminded Miwa so much of the cannibal dens. Although there was no visible blood, enough living creatures had been repeatedly slain inside that the gore soaked into the rocks. Miwa reflexively hid her nose behind her kimono sleeve. The long rock tunnels emptied out into a wide cavern filled with odd machines. "Is this?" "Yes, it is NGL's hidden side," confirmed Kite. Killua glanced around at the blood-stained machinery. "A drug factory." Kite nodded. "Yes. This factory produces the drug D2. There are probably nearby Bila trees which produce its main ingredient. Ironic given their claims as preservationists." Killua opened one of the crates. "They're making more than drugs. Look." Inside the crate was a stack of guns. Kite frowned. "I assume that only the NGL leaders know the truth of this place." The other members joined because they honestly loved nature. Killua put his hands in his pockets. "So, this facility is the center of NGL's underground. If it's empty, then the Chimera ants have wiped out the NGL underground," affirmed Kite. "A bunch of amateurs with guns won't suffice to deal with them." "Think the boss was taken care of?" asked Gon. "Probably. Either way it's SHH. Niwa hissed out. "I hear movement. Something is coming, middle tunnel." She couldn't smell anything but the gore, but her hearing hadn't dulled inside the cave. It wasn't as potent as her sense of smell, but it was better than the others. At the far end of the room were 3 tunnels, and Miwa could distinctly hear something walking in the middle tunnel. There were more in the left and right tunnels, but the thing in the middle was closer to approaching them. It arrived a scarce minute after Miwa gave her warning. She could only assume it was a chimera ant because it was clearly not human. It had the lower half of a massive white horse with a vibrantly red tail. The upper half of the body was a muscular human with gray skin. In its right hand were 2 chains that lead to 2 half-starved and plainly tortured naked human men. They were forced to walk on their elbows and knees, whimpering and crying. Their sunken-in bodies were painful to look at. "Shut up," snapped the ant, raising the chains on the humans to choke them. The ant flicked out a tongue, then noticed the group. "Who are you guys? How dare you intrude on my turf? Help! Please help us." "Shut up, Spot. You're just a damn dog," snarled the ant right before he stomped on the human's head, popping it like a tomato. It lifted its blood-soaked hoof, chuckling. "Oops, didn't mean to do that. Oh well. I'm getting bored with these guys. Guess I should get rid of Rover, too." The man remaining let out a panicked whine, turning quickly around and starting to bark and beg as tears spilled out of his eyes. Shameless. It amused the ant, however, because a wide smile stretched over its face as it proceeded to stomp on Rover as well. The sound of the bones crunching and blood gushing made Gon wince. "I got it," said the ant as 2 more chimera ants stepped out from the tunnels beside it. "You 4 will be my new dogs." Chimera ants have always been aggressive, but it seems consuming malicious humans has made them even more evil, observed Kite. "Does that mean if they eat kind humans, they would be kind?" "It's likely the ants are developing individualism through their unique method of reproduction." "Capture them," ordered the horse ant. "I will deal with the one in the back. You 3 deal with the 2 rushing us." "Niwa back," Gon said. "But Niwa back," said Killua. "I wanna fight too." "Kite, I'm sorry, but I'm kill stealing," said Miwa, already dashing forward. "Watch over Killua and Gon." To Miwa's delighted relief, Kite agreed to watch. It wasn't fair that Gon and Killua got to do all the fighting. Entertain M chortled the horse ant right up until Miwa ripped its head off, somersaulted in the air, and slammed it down onto the ground where it exploded like a smashed watermelon. Tada, said Miwa, stepping out of the blue blood to take a bow as the rest of the body of the horse ant crumbled to the ground. Killua, who had already killed the ant he had been fighting, applauded her with a smile. Gon finished up with his own ant shortly afterward, and Kite gave each of them an approving smile. Well fought. Their nest should be nearby, so we'll continue to move out. Amen. Miwa sent out a clone to search the facility for the maps Krallo wanted, while she, Gon, Killua, and Kite headed back out into the forest to hunt for the nest. Night had descended upon them, the moon climbing into the sky. It was pitch black except for the stars and moonlight, but the trees shielded most of that light. Miwa and Killua were completely silent as they walked through the forest, but Gon kept stepping on every twig and branch along the way. More than once he tripped and had to have Miwa catch him. Miwa could hear a lot of creatures throughout the forest. Kite must have sensed them as well, because he warned the children that they were surrounded. Suddenly, many of them converged upon the group, and a frog ant jumped down from a great height in front of them. The frog ant said, "Let's decide order and methodology. As for our targets, you have 3 choices. 1. Decide the order in which you fight. 2. Attempt OT escape. 3. Give up and let us capture you. If you choose option 1, you will fight one-on-one battles with us for a chance to survive. I don't recommend the second option. You'll anger us, resulting in a brutal capture and prolonged suffering for all of you. Option 3 is out of the question. That would anger us even more than option 2. So what will you do? We literally could not have asked for a better deal," said Kite. One-on-one fights with their captains. We'll start with whoever is prepared to fight. I'll go, said Killua at the same time Gon said, me. The 2 boys glared at each other, immediately starting a game of rock-paper-scissors that Gon won. Killua stuck his tongue out at Gon, who gave him a cheeky grin. Gon stepped up to the Chimera ants. One of the ants said, well, we need to decide who to send from our side. Another ant shook some kind of wooden box and out popped a piece of paper with the number 6 on it. 6? Who's 6? Ehehe, Lucky, chortled an armadillo ant that waddled over to Gon. Gon asked, how is the victor decided? That should be obvious. Whoever dies first loses. Gon frowned at that. We can't surrender? What? Are you crazy? If you lose, we'll feed you to our queen. If you don't defeat me, you're guaranteed to die. Yeah, I'm okay with that, said Gon. But there's no need for you to die. If I beat you, I can't eat you. If you surrender, you'll live and have a chance to grow stronger. Then we can fight again. Gon, Miwa admonished. Seichesh. Let him have his fun, said Killua. What? Asked Gon, confused. Don't you want to talk to them, Miwa? I mean, yes, but ugh. If you surrender, Gon went on, you have to promise to never eat another human. The ants laughed. This guy isn't taking us seriously. What a joke. He has more pep than any human I've seen. I'll kill you, howled the armadillo ant, curling into a ball and rolling at Gon. Gon jumped over it. The ant rolled again, but when Gon dodged again, the ant used its tail to alter its trajectory and body slammed Gon into a nearby tree. It stopped rolling, laughing as it taunted Gon. Why are you so tough? By this point, the rest were vomiting organs. EW. Ha! Doesn't matter, a few more rolls and you're done for, mocked the ant. Kid, listen up. The main reason we kill humans isn't to eat them or feed them to the queen. Then why? Because it's fun. I love the sound as humans vomit their organs with a plop. It's hilarious because it looks like barf. That's nasty, Gon politely told the ant. I'll make you vomit your own organs with a plop, then I'll do the same to your friends, ha? The ant curled into a ball, rolling at Gon again, but that time Gon caught it. It's really gross, said Gon, squeezing the ant. But if you like it so much. Gon popped the armadillo ant, its organs and blood belching out of every orifice in a slimy drudge, effectively killing it. Gon dropped the body. Black. You've got ant blood on your shirt now, said Miwa. Aw man, I like this shirt. Miwa, do you have any extra? Miwa was already pulling out one of her storage scrolls as Killua stepped up. Gon beamed, taking out an extra shirt. "So much better," said Gon appreciatively after swapping shirts. "Thanks. My turn," said Killua, walking forward. "Who's fighting me?" "Me," whispered Miwa. "Eat," added Gon. "Shut up," Killua said, scowling at both of them. The two friends just giggled. Killua's fight with the next ant was over within minutes. Killua didn't even get a drop of blood on him, which he gloated about to Gon. Kite decided to fight third, but he used the opportunity to eliminate all the ants in the immediate area, satisfied the group could handle whatever came their way. Killua sighed. "Gon if you trip on another branch." "Arg," said Gon as he tripped on another branch. Miwa decided to just pick Gon up and carry him bridal style. Gon pouted, putting his arms around Miwa's neck. "You walk so loudly," Miwa scolded him. "I'm not an assassin," Gon muttered petulantly. "Kite isn't one either, but he's not tripping over every branch," Killua snorted derisively. "He's an old man, he's got more experience than me. I'm not even 30. Seichish, Miwa soothed. There. Isn't it nice to be carried?" Gon considered it. "Yeah, do you want me to toss you?" "Yes." "What?" Killua's eyes widened. "I want to be tossed, too." "Perhaps," Kite hesitantly cut in, "we shouldn't toss anyone while we're trying to sneak through enemy territory on a time limit." "Boo," said Gon. "Toss me later?" "Okay," Miwa agreed. Gon affectionately bumped his forehead against Miwa, then rested his chin on her shoulder. He peered at Killua walking behind them, an amused twinkle in his eyes. "Don't forget about your punishment, Killua." "I haven't." "I will," Killua grumbled. "Punishment?" asked Miwa. "Nothing," they said. After a few more run-ins with other soldiers, the group finally found the nest. They reached the edge of a cliff, and overlooking that cliff was another forest. Further into that forest was a giant construction that stank of shit and mud. "That's it," said Miwa, recalling that Kite said the ants would build their nest from feces. "That disgusting abomination is it?" "Gross," said Gon, pinching his nose. "I don't want to have to fight in that. What if our feet sink into it?" Miwa's face twisted in disdain. "Ugh, what if it's soft and warm?" "I doubt it'll be soft," scoffed Killua. Gon cocked his head. "Maybe the fresher parts of it." "You!" Seichish scolded Kite. "Do you sense?" He abruptly fell silent, his eyes widening. "Monster," whispered Kite. Killua, Gon, Miwa, run away. "Ha!" Miwa's ears twitched, she heard something whistling in the wind hurtling towards them. "Get away!" Miwa flickered forward, catching the clawed hand that had aimed for Kite's arm. There was enough force behind the swipe that Miwa was forced to dig her heels into the ground. It still knocked her back several feet, but she hadn't let go of the hand she had caught. Kite sucked in a sharp breath from behind her, realizing exactly how close he had been to losing that arm, or worse. The creature that had attacked yanked its hand away from Miwa, leaping back and crouching low. "Pea pretty," Miwa whispered, her eyes widening at the chimera ant that appeared before them. The ant had a humanoid shape like many of the others, but they were smaller and more refined. Indeed, had Miwa's nose not told her otherwise, she might have mistaken the chimera ant for a pretty human. The ant had wide, shiny red eyes that reminded Miwa an awful lot of Kurama's own red eyes. They had short, soft-looking, curly white hair, and two cute kitty ears on top of their head. A cat tail waved lazily behind them, and a coy smile curled their lips. Miwa had been fond of using the word cute, but she thought pretty did that chimera ant more justice. The hair on the back of Miwa's neck stood up as she felt Killua move. With frightening speed, he rendered Gon unconscious and looked up at her. Miwa hadn't seen Killua look so utterly frightened before since the hunter exam when he first fought his brother. There was a manic gleam in his eyes, a pale flush to his skin, and a sharpness in his movement. It only took one moment for her to see and understand. She needed to get them out of there. It didn't matter if she thought she could win the fight. Killua was afraid, and he was her priority. She flickered to Kite, knocking him out from behind as she summoned hundreds of shadow clones to harass the new cat ant. Killua, with Gon over his back, reached for her and she held out her hand. He grasped it tightly, squeezing it as if to stop himself from trembling. She hadn't placed many markers in the new country. She settled on the one just outside the country, teleporting the four of them to the tree she had marked. Kite was dropped down and Killua sat gone down. He struggled to even his breathing out, his hands trembling. Niwa held his hand, squeezing it to reassure him. "It's okay now," she said quietly, moving closer. "We're out of the country." Killua looked around. "Good. I'll stay here. If it can chase us this far, I'll teleport us to another country, but it'll be good to know how fast it can move," she said. "Do you want me to teleport you three someplace else?" Killua swallowed roughly, straightening up but not letting go of her hand. "And no. I'll stay with you. Don't push yourself." "I'm not." "Okay," she said. The two stared out at the entrance to the country, the night sky their only source of light. There was no sound aside from the wind blowing through the leaves, and Killua was slowly evening out his breathing. His hand was sweaty, but it no longer trembled inside of Niwa's. Despite such, he didn't let go. Niwa softly asked him, "Do you want to sit down?" "Yeah. We'll be here a while, won't we?" he murmured, and the two carefully sat on the grass. Niwa patted her thigh. "You can rest your head on my lap. I promise I'll wake you up if anything happens." Maybe it went to show how tired Killua was, or how exhausting it was to be terrified, but the white-haired boy made no protest. He leaned down, placing his head in her lap. She soothingly began to play with his hair, slowly and methodically running her fingers through it. There, she thought. "I'll keep you safe, I promise." Alternative. Kurama. "I know they've sparked your interest, but they might be a danger to my dear ones. Would you be opposed to a Biju bomb?" "What? What kind of bullshit question is that?" "Of course bomb them." "What? But don't you sympathize with them because they're similar to you?" "Fuck sympathy. Who the hell needs that? Bomb the entire place. Flatten it. Annihilate everything with my power. Let it rain fire. Let the ground split open. Let them quake in terror as we inflict a genocide unlike this world has ever seen. Do you want to take over?" "Yes. Yes. Okay. Have fun. Ah ha 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 ha. Yep. Here we go. This is what life is about." Aya and the entire Chimera Ants are wiped from existence. End of arc. RIP Best Beauty and Beast love story and best waifus Patu and Poof. T to the power of T. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.